Chapter 391. Qin Shujian. Ran Gaoyang had always remembered this name, but he had never really fought with him. Even when Yin Caizhe led the army to attack, Ran Gaoyang did not make a move. So, he had only heard of this Array Dao Grandmaster reincarnated from the Almighty, but he had never seen him in person. The city protecting formation at the moment was obviously the work of a Array Grandmaster. In the entire Thousand Mountains Prefecture, there were only two Array Grandmasters in the past. One was Ming Jingshan. The other was Qin Shujian. Ran Gaoyang had never fought with Qin Shujian before, but he had fought with Ming Jingshan. Although that old man's cultivation was valiant, his attainments in the Tao of formations couldn't be considered very profound, even though he had reached the level of a Grandmaster. But he was confident that he could teach Ming Jingshan a lesson by himself. With Ming Jingshan's cultivation in Array Dao, he would never be able to set up such a formation. Suppressing the surprise in his heart, the storage ring in Ran Gaoyang's hand flashed, and 12 flags flew out from it. Then, they occupied all directions of heaven and earth, and a large formation was suddenly formed. The best way to break the formation, it was to use another formation to resist. As the large formation was formed, a strong buzzing sound came from the void. Soon after, the two arrays started to boil violently like boiling water. Bolts of lightning appeared out of nowhere in the void. Between the two arrays, endless killing intent was revealed. Boom! In the end, the power of the formation on the city suddenly gathered and turned into a shocking sword slash. In the end, the large formation was broken. 3 of the 12 flags were broken, and the other 9 were sent flying. Ran Gaoyang snorted and retreated in the air. At the same time, a powerful fluctuation spread out in all directions with the city protecting formation as the center, causing the airborne realm cultivators who were originally close to the city to vomit blood and fly away. They had already suffered heavy injuries. The peak of the first level of the Master Realm and the second level of the Master Realm, Ran Gaoyang barely stood still, and the qi and blood in his body were somewhat turbulent. As for the 12 flags after the formation was broken, they had returned to his hands. However, when he saw that 3 of the flags were broken, there was a little pain in his eyes. It was not an easy task to refine a set of array flags. Not only was it a matter of materials, but they also needed to find a suitable blacksmith. Now, the backlash from the formation had caused 3 of the flags to break. Although the set of flags was not destroyed, its power had been greatly reduced. He glanced at the guardian array with fear. Ran Gaoyang immediately retreated. As for Guotong, he was also constantly paying attention to Ran Gaoyang's changes. When he saw that Ran Gaoyang had failed to break the formation, his expression turned ugly. "Grandmaster Ran, are you all right?" "I'm fine. It's just a slight tremor." Ran Gaoyang waved his hand. After taking a deep breath, he looked at the city in front of him and said in a serious tone, "The person who set up this formation is at least at the peak of the first realm of the Supreme Power Realm, or even at the second realm of the Supreme Power Realm. If that's the case, is there a way to break the formation?" "Yes." Ran Gaoyang answered affirmatively. "What is it?" "Any formation must have a formation core. If I'm not wrong, the formation in front of us is set up using the city as a carrier. There must be a formation core buried in the city," Ran Gaoyang said in a deep voice. "As long as we find a way to find the formation core in the city and then destroy it, even if the formation doesn't collapse by itself, its power will be greatly reduced. At that time, the incomplete formation won't be able to stop me." Hearing that, Guotong fell into a short silence. It would not be easy to enter the enemy's city and find the formation core. Especially now that the war had started, the city must be heavily guarded. In this case, the city gate would not even be opened, let alone sneak into the city. Ran Gaoyang said at this time, "Although we can't enter the city, General Gua, don't forget that there are some people who can pass through the city unimpeded. Maybe they can be of use to us." "Grandmaster Ran, you mean?" "Yes, it's the dissimulated men." Ran Gaoyang nodded and said, "We might as well issue a task to ask the dissimulated men in the city to find a way to find the formation core in the city. As long as the formation core is destroyed, the city will lose its biggest barrier. It's only a matter of time before we take over the city." "Grandmaster Ran, you're right. Guotong nodded his head. As early as when the other party spoke, he had vaguely guessed the general meaning. Indeed, dissimulated men could sometimes be of great use if they were used well. Another 2 hours passed. The city still could not be taken down. Guotong finally recognized a fact. Under the protection of the formation, it was not easy to directly take down the city with the current forces. Therefore, after 2 hours, he finally gave the order to retreat. Immediately, the army retreated like a tide, leaving only some corpses that had not been completely refreshed. After the army retreated, Guotong immediately issued a task to the dissimulated men, asking them to go to the enemy's city and find the formation core of the city protection formation. After that, in the next few days, Guotong only sent people to feign an attack. The rest was to wait for the news that the formation was broken. On the other side, Qin Shujian was still on the road of killing demons at this time. As the source of life steadily increased, he had already improved the second cultivation method to the completion stage of spiritual martial arts. Under the combination of the two cultivation methods, not to mention the changes in the spiritual spirit, the total amount of true essence was much more than the average person. At this point, Qin Shujian could already feel the existence of the thin film in the dark, the boundary of the divine martial arts. He was very clear that this thin film was the transformation from the spiritual martial realm to the divine martial realm. It was just compared to the terrifying danger that he felt when he reached the peak of the basic martial realm and the true martial realm. This thin film, the threat that he felt was not strong. In other words, as long as Qin Shujian wanted, he could break the shackles at any time and advance to the divine martial realm. To this, he was not too surprised, since the celestial sect could produce a great cultivator of the divine martial realm. Qin Shujian knew that the shackles of the spiritual domain were completely different from the shackles of other regions. It could be said that the spiritual domain was the closest existence to a large region. Besides some differences in spiritual qi between the two, there was almost no difference. In this case, the shackles of the spiritual domain were also relatively weaker. As long as one had a Tao artifact to protect himself or had a strong foundation, he could directly exert strength that far exceeded the spiritual martial realm in the spiritual domain. Even if the strength that surpassed the spiritual martial realm would be weakened in the spiritual domain, but it would not be weakened too much. Almost every large sect in the spiritual domain was supported by the strength of the divine martial realm. Shaking his head, Qin Shujian gave up the impulse to break through. Break through now. There was no need. He could feel that he was far from reaching the limit. At this time, he would not reach the true peak. It's still early to break through. According to the current speed of harvesting life force, it should be enough to raise myself to the peak state in about 1 or 2 years. Qin Shujian thought in his heart. 1 or 2 years was the speed of harvesting life force provided by the disciples of the Yuan sect. After all, a cultivation method did not have to be mentioned in the front. Just the last 2 levels of the spiritual martial technique alone required 150 million life force to raise. 5 cultivation methods would cost a total of 750 million gold coins. In addition to the levels that had not been raised, it would require at least 800 million life force. The cultivation of the disciples of the Yuan sect was improving day by day. The life force that everyone could provide was also increasing steadily. For example, some disciples of the true martial realm or the spiritual god realm could provide thousands to tens of thousands of life force points by killing a spiritual god realm demon beast. Although it was impossible for every disciple of the sect to contribute so much life force. But in summary, it was about time to provide 800 million life force points in 2 years. If he used luck points to exchange for it, this progress would be greatly reduced. Seeing that there were more than 4,000 luck points in the attribute pain, Qin Shujian temporarily suppressed the urge to exchange for it. It was not the time to exchange for it. Luck points were hard to come by. It seemed that he had accumulated quite a lot now. But in fact, after killing all the demons in the true dominion of the Baiyun Mansion, it would not be so easy to harvest luck points. The demons sealed in the spiritual domain, every one of them would be a complete heavenly man supreme cultivator. If he was not careful, perhaps the entire Baiyun Mansion would fall. Therefore, The seal of the demons in the spiritual domain could not be touched. The Marquis of Bayun would not let him touch it either. Even Qin Shujian himself was not 100% confident that he could deal with the demons at their peak. In that case, the idea of harvesting luck points would come to an end. As for the demons of the true dominion in the other prefectures, they might not let him harvest them. After all, in the true dominion of every prefecture, fortresses would be built to guard the places where the demons were sealed. If one did not have a handwritten order token, it would be equivalent to declaring war. The demons in the ordinary dominion were the only ones who could take advantage of the situation. However, even if he killed all the demons in the ordinary dominion of the 13 prefectures, he would not be able to contribute much luck points. Based on the current rate of increase, it was at most 10,000 luck points should be the most he could get. However, to Qin Shujian, 10,000 luck points was not a small number. At the same time, he wanted to know more. If his luck value reached 10,000, he would be able to obtain 10,000 points. Would the attribute panel undergo a new transformation? After devouring a large number of demons, Qin Shujian rested for a few days and completely polished his spirit and physical body. Then, he headed to the other fortresses again to continue his great mission of killing demons. The blood-red sword flashed past, but there was no blood rain. A withered corpse fell to the ground as if it had been dead for many years. Peng Qing skillfully searched the corpse and took away the useful items. Then, he looked at his own legacy mission. The progress of the mission to kill 10,000 true martial stage S had already steadily stopped at 9,999. I still need one more. Chapter 392. During this period of time, Peng Qing had been wandering around the great Zhao 13 prefectures. He kept on killing cultivators of the true martial realm or above. For it was to complete this inheritance quest. After all, the true martial realm was considered the backbone of the cultivation world. If a large number of true martial realm cultivators died in a prefecture, it would inevitably attract the suspicion and attention of others. He had to pull wool. He couldn't just grab a prefecture and pull it out. Or else, he couldn't be so carefree until now. For 2 years, Peng Qing had been wandering between killing and being chased. The lives of nearly 10,000 true martial realm cultivators pushed his realm to the Vision Divine realm. It could be said, this kind of improvement was especially terrifying. But with the Weeping Blood Blade in his hand, Peng Qing found that the experience points he got from killing cultivators seemed to be more than others. Also, when he killed nearly 10,000 cultivators, the Weeping Blood Blade also transformed from a spirit artifact to a Dao artifact. And it wasn't a normal Dao artifact, but a second seal artifact. He had the strength of the 8th level of the spirit martial realm, together with the second seal artifact, the Weeping Blood Blade. It could be said, even if it was a god martial realm cultivator, Peng Qing still had the power to fight. As for killing true martial realm and spirit martial realm cultivators, it was even easier. That was also why. The reason why he could almost complete the inheritance quest in 2 years. Is it really the last segment after completing this inheritance quest? Peng Qing asked. Dao Nu's voice came out from the ring as he slowly said, to be able to kill 10,000 true martial realm cultivators, you already have the qualifications to receive the true inheritance. At that time, you will become the strongest existence in the world. The strongest? Peng Qing secretly shook his head. He didn't completely believe Dao Nu's words. The so-called strongest in the world was just a gimmick. However, from the changes in his body, Peng Qing was almost certain that the inheritance he received was the extremely powerful one. At least, among the current players, there shouldn't be anyone who received an inheritance that was stronger than him. Once he completed the final quest, he would be able to receive the complete inheritance. At that time, his strength would definitely skyrocket. Although he couldn't really be invincible, but it wasn't impossible to become the #1 player. At that time, he could naturally get whatever he wanted, whether it was in reality or in the game. However, when Peng Qing thought about the rewards he could obtain after becoming the strongest player in the game, his heart remained extremely calm. He had slaughtered so many cultivators. His heart gradually turned cold. For many things. Although he still had a certain level of obsession, However, it was not an easy thing to cause a fluctuation in one's state of mind. At present, apart from the fact that he was about to complete the mission, there were no other fluctuations in his emotions. How dare you kill a deacon of my sect? You're courting death. A furious shout rang out from afar, accompanied by a formidable atmosphere of power. Next, a beefy cultivator flew through the sky to charge towards Peng Qing. In his line of sight, he could see the withered body on the ground. Although he had changed a lot, however, he was still able to tell that they were from his own sect. As for Peng Qing, he was too lazy to care about the other party's background. Since he dared to kill the deacon of his sect, only death awaited him. Although in the eyes of this cultivator, although Peng Qing's strength was extraordinary, it was not enough to make him feel apprehensive. It was also at this moment, Peng Qing raised the hand holding the sword slightly and slashed out with the weeping blood blade. In the eyes of that cultivator, he could only see a flash of cold light, followed by an earth-shattering massacre, which made him feel as if his mind had been frozen in an instant. It seemed like an instant, but it also seemed like a long time had passed. When that cultivator came back to his senses, he realized that he could no longer control his body. His essence and blood seemed to be drawn by something, constantly gushing out from his throat. In less than 2 breaths of time, a mummified corpse fell to the ground, a pair of eyes staring angrily. There was still a doubtful expression on his face. It seemed like he did not expect. How could he die so easily? You've killed 10,000 real martial realm cultivators. You've completed the inheritance mission. The system's notification came as expected. Peng Qing immediately checked his mission panel and found that the inheritance mission was now displayed as completed. The mission has been completed. Prepare to receive the final inheritance. Dao Nu's voice rose from the ring, and then he said, "The inheritance is a bit noisy. Find a secluded place, otherwise it will be bad if someone interrupts." The inheritance will take a long time? The inheritance will not take long, but it will take a certain amount of time. If you receive it here and are interrupted, the inheritance will be considered a failure. Hearing this, Li Changshu said. Peng Qing did not ask any more questions. However, he could also feel that this inheritance was not simple. According to Dao Nu's request, Peng Qing did not take too long to find a secluded mountain forest. When his divine will swept out, there was nothing around that could threaten him. Immediately, he said, "What should I do next?" "Sit down cross-legged and prepare to receive the inheritance." "Okay." Peng Qing sat down cross-legged and put the weeping blood blade aside. After he sat down cross-legged, Peng Qing felt a strange energy wrap around his body, and his mind was instantly immersed in it. From the outside world, a monstrous blood aura surged out from the ring. In an instant, it wrapped around Peng Qing and the weeping blood blade, and then turned into a huge blood cocoon. Thunder was faintly buzzing in the sky, as if indicating that something ominous was happening. On the other side, as he was wrapped in the blood cocoon, Peng Qing found that he had entered a world that looked like a sea of blood. The sea of blood below was surging. Countless vengeful spirits were wailing in it. As for the center of the sea of blood, there was a long saber that was tied up in chains. Most of the saber was submerged in the sea of blood, and only a small part of the saber and the hilt were exposed. But in Peng Qing's view, this was clearly an enlarged version of the weeping blood blade. Where is this? Standing in the air, Peng Qing's face was filled with doubt and seriousness. Standing in the air above the sea of blood, he could feel that the surroundings were filled with an ominous aura. Evil. Slaughter. Even if Peng Qing had killed no less than 10,000 people, the killing intent and the smell of blood in his heart paled in comparison to the sea of blood in front of him. There was no comparison at all. At this moment, a voice sounded above the sea of blood. "This is the space of the Saber Master's inheritance. As long as you hold the hilt in the sea of blood, you will receive the complete Saber Master's inheritance." The voice was faint. He could not tell north from south. Or rather, the voice came from the space itself. However, when he heard the voice, Peng Qing was slightly relieved. After all, coming to such an unfamiliar and strange environment would inevitably make one feel uneasy. However, the appearance of the voice. It made him understand that this was indeed the place to receive the inheritance after completing the mission. However, the words of the voice made Peng Qing feel relieved, but at the same time, he was stunned. Saber Master. This was the first time he had heard of this name. Speaking of which, after receiving the inheritance mission for so long, Peng Qing did not know which expert the inheritance he received came from. When he asked Dao Nu also avoided talking about this and only told him that he would naturally know the identity of the owner of the inheritance in the end. Until now, Peng Qing finally knew. His inheritance came from an expert named Saber Master. Perhaps Saber Master was his real name, but in his opinion, it was more of an honorific or a title. Saber Master, the master of sabers. How arrogant! Peng Qing could not help but say in his heart. However, the more arrogant the other party was, the more he understood the power of the inheritance. He thought about it again. Previously, Peng Qing had always thought that Dao Nu was called Dao Nu because he was a servant. However, now that he thought about it, Saber Master, Dao Nu, he now understood the other party's identity. Holding the saber hilt, he would receive the inheritance. Thinking of the words of the voice, Peng Qing took a deep breath and flew towards the saber in the middle of the blood sea using divine telekinesis. When he got close to the saber, only now did he truly see how huge this long saber was. It was like a mountain range, only a small part of the saber that was exposed in the blood sea, including the hilt, was 200 to 300 feet long. The greater part of the saber that was directly submerged in the blood sea was at least 400 to 500 feet long. A saber that was almost 1,000 feet long. Peng Qing found it hard to imagine. What kind of expert would be able to use such a weapon? Just put your hand on the hilt. At this moment, the voice in the blood sea space sounded again. Put his hand on the hilt? Hearing that, Peng Qing moved closer again. At this moment, the engraved patterns on the hilt had become extremely clear. Every seemingly ordinary pattern seemed to come alive in his eyes after combining with other patterns. They were engraved patterns. They also seemed to be terrifying saber techniques. Apart from that, they were more like flowing blood, as if they could completely devour people. There was no reason for it. Peng Qing suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. Even his hand that was about to reach out stopped. A bad feeling. Was there a problem with the inheritance? He was a little hesitant in his heart. However, on second thought, this was just a game. Although it could affect reality, it couldn't erase the fact that it was just a game. No matter what happened in the game, the players wouldn't die. Since they wouldn't die, then many of his worries could be thrown away. Besides, in order to complete this mission, he had been searching everywhere for cultivators to kill for 2 years. He had spent a lot of effort. His final goal was just this moment in front of him. If he gave up just because of a bad feeling, it would be too wasteful. Thinking of this, Peng Qing's eyes hardened, and he immediately pressed his palm over. Chapter 393. Buzz. When his palm touched the hilt of the blade, the entire blood sea space seemed to tremble. Immediately after, Peng Qing found that his palm seemed to be pulled by some kind of suction force. No matter how he struggled, there was no way to pull his palm away. It was also at this moment, a terrifying thought rose from the long saber, a cold and cruel voice. It instantly resounded throughout the entire blood sea space. How many years has it been? Finally, the opportunity has come. Ha 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 ha, I finally have the opportunity. A few simple sentences. In Peng Qing's ears, it was as if he was in the middle of thunder. The body formed by divine thoughts almost collapsed. A great fear surged in his heart. He could no longer maintain his calm expression. He wanted to open his mouth to speak. But Peng Qing found that his entire body seemed to be imprisoned. No matter how he struggled, he couldn't move at all. He couldn't even open his mouth to speak. If at this moment, he still didn't know that he had been tricked by the NPC, then Peng Qing would have lived for so many years in vain. But what he didn't expect was, this so-called inheritance mission was actually a trap. For a moment, Peng Qing thought a lot, but there wasn't much fear in his heart. Although this inheritance mission was a trap, causing all his original plans to fail, he might even have to pay the price of losing a level. But that was it. This loss, he could still bear it. It was also at this moment that terrifying thought directly rushed into his mind. Compared to the vast and deep thought, Peng Qing's divine thoughts were as weak as a firefly. In just an instant, it was directly swallowed up. It was also at this moment the blood sea space trembled even more violently. The blood sea below churned. Countless vengeful spirits let out mournful wails as if the end of the world had arrived. Rumble. The long blade that was deeply embedded in the blood sea also trembled. The chains that bound the long blade suddenly straightened. Then, as if there was an invisible hand pulling hard, the chains instantly shattered. Without the restraint of the chains, the long blade slowly rose from the blood sea. In an instant, the sky of the blood sea space collapsed. The aura of destruction spread out mightily. In the outside world, the moment the chains of the long blade broke, the blood-colored clouds in the sky condensed. Then, blood-red lightning shuttled back and forth. It was an ominous sign. It spread out from the sky. Any cultivator who sensed this aura felt as if their hearts were being squeezed tightly by a large hand, and even their breathing became somewhat smooth. What happened? A peak prominent divine stage cultivator who was in closed-door cultivation suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Just now, he sensed an ominous aura of destruction. As this aura spread out, even a prominent divine stage cultivator would not be able to maintain their calm. Even in the state of breakthrough, he had no choice but to interrupt him midway. However, compared to the failure of the breakthrough, the cultivator was more concerned about the origin of this aura. Based on his hundreds of years of experience, he had never felt such a destructive and ominous power before. In front of this aura, he felt as if he was an ant, and the slightest touch was all it took to crush him into pieces. Something like this. Many sects appeared in the vicinity. No matter if it was a cultivator of the spiritual martial realm or a cultivator of the true martial realm, they all trembled in front of this aura, as if they had encountered a terrifying heaven and earth. Some cultivators saw the blood-colored thunderclouds spreading in the sky. They were even more shocked. As time went by, the range of the blood-colored thunderclouds was no longer limited to the boundary of a forest. Instead, it kept spreading in all directions. In a short period of time, it already had the range of a true dominion. The cultivators who were watching the blood-colored thunderclouds from afar were still fine. However, those who were under the blood-colored thunderclouds felt as if they were in the depths of Azura hell. Their bodies were stiff on the spot, and their minds seemed to be completely frozen. They did not dare to move at all. In the space of the blood sea, when the long saber was completely pulled out of the blood sea, one could see the long saber, which was close to 1,000 feet long, erected in the void. The blood-red saber seemed to have blood flowing on it, and a terrifying killing aura spread out. As for Peng Qing, at this moment, he closed his eyes tightly and stood in the void, motionless. After a long while, he suddenly opened his eyes. In an instant, the entire space of the blood sea went berserk. As Peng Qing opened his eyes, a pair of blood-red eyes appeared. At this moment, it was as if a terrifying existence had awakened. When a vast aura swept out, the void faintly wailed. At this moment, the long saber, which was originally close to 1,000 feet long, suddenly shrank at a speed visible to the naked eye. Finally, it returned to its normal size and slowly landed in front of Peng Qing. Long time no see. At this moment, Peng Qing held the saber hilt with one hand. The corners of his mouth curled into a strange smile, and his blood-red eyes seemed to be filled with nostalgia. Since I have returned this time, I will complete what I failed to do back then. You should also follow me into battle once more. At this moment, a hunchbacked old man appeared from the blood sea. The moment he saw Peng Qing, he immediately bowed his head and said, "Greetings, Saber Master. You've done a good job." "Thank you, Saber Master. Now that your mission has been completed, you may return." After speaking, Peng Qing opened his mouth. Immediately, Saber Master did not resist at all. He turned into a stream of blood chi and entered Peng Qing's mouth. In an instant, Peng Qing swallowed him into his stomach. The next moment, the saber master held the long saber in his hand. When he slashed with the saber, he easily tore the blood sea space apart. In an instant, he stepped out of the broken sky and his body disappeared from the spot. In the outside world, the blood cocoon on the ground suddenly exploded. Peng Qing, who was sitting cross-legged, opened his eyes at this moment. However, unlike before, his eyes were terrifyingly blood-red. Without a doubt, the person who woke up now was not Peng Qing, but the Saber Master. The moment the Saber Master stood up, the blood-red thundercloud seemed to have sensed something and was about to strike down at any moment. The Saber Master's blood-red eyes suddenly disappeared. They returned to their black and white state. The evil aura on his body also disappeared. It was as if none of the changes had happened. At this moment, the blood-red thundercloud in the sky also lost its target. In the end, it slowly disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. Soon, the sky returned to its original clear state. Only the Saber Master stood in the same place. His expression changed slightly. Player, the real world. After completely digesting Peng Qing's memory, he finally understood the origin of this alien who had taken over his body. Haha, an alien has descended from the sky. So, the so-called alien is called a player. The real world. As expected, the Saber Master held the blood-weeping blade in his hand. At this moment, he inserted a long saber shadow into it. Instantly, a low hum of a saber was heard. But very quickly, it was forcefully suppressed by a force. Finally, 5 seals were engraved on the blood-weeping blade, showing how terrifying the transformation of this weapon had been. Bloody Sea Underworld Blade. Unfortunately, I still can't fully restore you to your peak. Since I've already come out, it won't be long before you regain your true strength. He murmured softly. The Saber Master opened his mouth and directly swallowed the blood-weeping blade, which was now the Bloody Sea Underworld Blade, into his body. Then, he followed Peng Qing's remaining memories and tried to exit the game. As the option to exit the game moved, the Blade Master immediately felt a terrifying suction force pulling in his entire divine consciousness. This process only took half an instant. If the Saber Master's divine sense hadn't reached such a terrifying level, he definitely wouldn't have noticed this short change. Soon, the stars moved. Heaven and earth changed. It was as if he had crossed the river of time and space and arrived at a completely new world. The next moment, the Saber Master felt his divine sense return to a body. He opened his eyes. He skillfully opened the game capsule. Then he walked out, looking at the decorations around him that were completely different from the original world. The Saber Master's eyes seemed to have a faint, bloody glow. In his sight, the tile floor he saw was no longer as simple as a tile floor. It was the embodiment of the natural order. He pushed the door open. He walked out of the room. The next moment, he was already in the outside world. He could see many humans flying back and forth in an orderly manner. On the street, the traffic was heavy. The Saber Master casually closed the door and walked on the street, brushing past other people from time to time. It seemed to be a completely normal scene. But in his eyes, what he saw was a scene that was close to the essence of this world. The natural aura is thin, but it's in a state of continuous increase, somewhat similar to the end of the Age of Chaos and the recovery of spirit aura. The natural order here is more complete, and the heavenly axiom has already awakened from its slumber. This world is not simple, the Saber Master thought to himself. Compared to the world he was in, the natural order here was more complete. The more complete the natural order was, the more stable it was. Then the power of the heavenly axiom would become stronger. This was not good news for the Saber Master. The current him, he was more like a thief who had sneaked into this world. Once the heavenly axiom noticed, it would kill him in the next moment. His strength had not recovered to its peak state, so there was no possibility of resisting the heavenly axiom. So, after a simple understanding of the natural order of this world, the Saber Master had already understood. Even if he had sneaked into this world, he could not act unscrupulously. And, as he came to the real world, his all-powerful cultivation had completely disappeared, leaving nothing for him. The Saber Master felt the power in his body. The second level of the true martial realm. In his view, such power was weak. If he guessed correctly, the power of the second level of the true martial realm should have been originally possessed by this body. Chapter 394. He had all of Peng Qing's memories. The Swordmaster was no stranger to the real world. After sensing that the laws of this world were perfected, he directly cashed in all his assets and then disappeared from the sight of others. Peng Qing was a prominent sage cultivator. Logically speaking, he was definitely a top-notch expert among the players. However, the other party had always kept a low profile, so there was almost no one who knew the other party's true identity. As for his sudden departure, apart from some friends and relatives, no one noticed. It was also from this day onwards. There was one less Peng Qing in the game world. There was one more Swordmaster in the real world. Nothing seemed to have changed, but there seemed to be something different. After the Heavenly Demon Temple reappeared and killed all the demons who disobeyed the orders of the Heavenly Demon Temple, the remaining demons all submitted to the might of the Heavenly Demon Temple. After all, in the end, the Heavenly Demon Temple was created by the Demon Emperor. It was an existence that ruled over all the demons. It was reasonable. The other demons should also obey the orders of the Heavenly Demon Temple. However, the strong were respected in the demon race. The Heavenly Demon Temple had not displayed its strength previously, and it had not appeared for many years, so the demons dared to ignore it. However, after this incident, the prestige of the Heavenly Demon Temple had once again been deeply ingrained in the hearts of all the demons. Naturally, no demons dared to disobey the orders of the Heavenly Demon Temple. Under the orders of the Heavenly Demon Temple, all the demons hid in the endless mountain range and did not come out. The originally raging beast tide also retreated. No demons or beasts were allowed to take half a step out of the endless mountain range. As for the actions of the demons, many people could guess the plans of this race. However, for some people, the Heavenly Demon Temple's actions were an open conspiracy. The demons were basically telling others that now that the Demon Emperor had passed away, the demons would not participate in the internal strife of the human race. They would just be a bystander, and they could fight without worry. They did not have to worry that they would stab them in the back. As for this, although these people understood, they had to admit it. The demons' actions. Indeed, they could not do anything. It was basically impossible to continue to respect the royal family of the Great Zhao Empire and unite the human race and not give the demons any chance. After all, the royal family was the royal family, and the human emperor was the human emperor. The Great Zhao had ruled the world for more than 6,000 years and had accumulated a lot of resentment. It was only because there was a Run Huang suppressing the world that no one dared to act rashly. Now that the human sovereign was gone, it was wishful thinking to rely on the royal family to suppress the entire world. For others, they acknowledged that the human emperor ruled the world. But that was all. Until now, the human sovereign had passed away. For many people, this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. After all, no one knew how long they would have to wait if they missed this opportunity. What if there was another human emperor in the Great Zhao royal family? Wouldn't he have to wait for another few thousand years? Thousands of years. It was enough to be described as a sea turning into mulberry fields. Not everyone could wait for thousands of years. One Renhuang was enough. The next Renhuang. He definitely couldn't appear in the royal family. Therefore, knowing the demon race's plan, the other vassals tacitly approved of the Heavenly Demon Temple's actions. After all, the strength of the demon clan was not any weaker than that of the human clan at their peak. Unless the entire human race attacked the endless mountain range, there might be a chance to destroy the demon race. However, this possibility was definitely not too high. It could even be said that it was very small. The human sovereign had yet to destroy the demon clan. With the current strength of the human clan, the chances of winning against the demon clan in the endless mountain range were not high. And if they were defeated, the entire human clan might be on the verge of destruction. Apart from that, there was an even more important point. That was, with the current situation of the human clan, if the demon clan attacked, they might put aside their former enmity and work together to fight against the demon clan. But if they were to work together to attack the demon clan, almost no one would respond. It was a very simple matter. No one could guarantee that when attacking the demon clan, their faction would not become a stepping stone for other factions. No one was willing to become someone else's dowry until the last moment. Therefore, when there was no possibility of destroying the demon clan, the retreat of the demon clan completely ignited the flames of war in the Great Zhao. The rebellion of Qinshan, Luoyue, and Nanfeng prefectures had caused half of the Great Zhao to fall into turmoil. But with the foundation of the imperial court, they still had some strength to deal with the vassals of the three prefectures. But after the three prefectures, Marquis Baiyong suddenly mobilized his troops. Within 3 days, he had conquered more than 300 cities in Baiyong City and subdued tens of millions of soldiers from the imperial court. He had completely expressed his intention to rebel. If the imperial court still had some strength to deal with the three prefectures, then with the addition of Baiyong Prefecture, the power of the Great Zhao royal family was somewhat stretched. Fortunately, although the 4 prefectures had rebelled, it was not all of the vassals of the Great Zhao 13 prefectures. Eastwen Prefecture, Wuhan Prefecture, Baiyun Prefecture. The 3 prefectures publicly spoke out and blamed the rebels. At the same time, they sent troops to help the Great Zhao Emperor deal with the rebels of the 4 prefectures. As for the remaining prefectures, they did not speak out against the rebels, nor did they openly rebel. They were temporarily in a wait-and-see attitude. For them, now, it was up to the imperial court and the vassals to see who had the advantage. Once one side showed the advantage, they would immediately stand over and bare their fangs and claws at the disadvantaged side. It could be said that, after the rebellion of Baiyong Prefecture, the entire Great Zhao 13 prefectures had fallen into chaos. In particular, there were players who were interfering and attacking the ordinary domain-level prefectures, causing quite a commotion. However, the imperial court was currently in an intense battle with the rebels. Furthermore, the players were not strong. In their eyes, it was just a small matter, so they did not pay much attention to it. Of course, they did not completely ignore it. It was necessary to send troops to suppress the development of the player cities. Compared to the other prefectures, although Baiyun Prefecture had sent troops to help the emperor. However, with the powerful Marquis Baiyun holding the fort, as well as the fact that the army had destroyed all the player cities, the entire Baiyun Prefecture became much calmer. The devil race was shocked by Marquis Baiyun. The players were also shocked by Marquis Baiyun's ruthless methods. After all, no one wanted to work so hard to take down a city only to have it destroyed before they could even recoup their losses. Although the players who could attack cities and become vassals were the few who had money and power in the real world. However, no matter how rich they were, it was not so wasteful. Every time they attacked a city, they would need to gather more than 100,000 players. They would need to pay a certain amount of compensation for casualties and killing enemies. After a huge battle, it was burning money. Who would be so bored as to send their heads to Marquis Baiyun? Anyway, the Great Zhao was getting more and more chaotic. If they went to other places to fish in troubled waters, they might even be able to take advantage of this opportunity to become stronger. If they stayed in the Baiyun Prefecture, everything would be monitored by the imperial court and they would not have the chance to do anything. The current situation in the Great Zhao, it affected many people, but there were also many who were not affected. Among the people who were not affected, Qin Shujian was one of them. During this period, he had been busy killing the evil spirits. He went to the True Dominion one by one and entered the strongholds one by one. Then, he repeatedly broke the seal and killed the evil spirits. After a long time, Qin Shujian himself felt that it was a little boring. Fortunately, looking at the steadily increasing luck points, he was quite happy. At least the boring work was accompanied by a considerable amount of compensation. As the spirit god became stronger, the energy provided by the evil demons was also becoming less and less helpful. In the end, devouring more than 10 or even dozens of evil spirits could really increase the spirit god by 10 feet. In this way, Qin Shujian did not have to worry about the spirit god exploding and escaping the control of the physical body again. He also did not need to spend time slowly refining the spirit god physical body. Boom! An earth-shattering sound erupted. More than 10 minutes later, a fire lotus was lying there quietly, indicating that an evil spirit had been refined. After absorbing the fire lotus, the spirit god, which had already reached 910 feet, climbed slowly like a turtle. In the end, it finally broke through its original limit and reached 920 feet. The spirit god was very powerful. This made Qin Shujian's perception extremely sharp. Even the speed at which it absorbed the heaven and earth spirit qi was many times faster than cultivators of the same realm. The spirit god of 920 feet should be reaching its limit. Faintly, Qin Shujian sensed that he had reached a certain limit. The spirit god of 920 feet. Although he had not really reached the peak of this limit, he could feel the existence of the limit. If nothing unexpected happened, if he continued to improve, it would not be long before he reached the limit. At the same time, Qin Shujian now had a certain guess as to why there was such a big difference in the source of life and energy obtained from devouring evil spirits and demon kings. In his opinion, the source of life and energy contributed by evil spirits was so little because evil spirits would not really die. Every time they were refined, they would be reborn in the fiend abyss. As for the moon-devouring demon king, he was completely dead. This comparison was easy to understand. Evil spirits had the special trait of being reborn. Those who died at their hands were more like clones and not their original bodies. Therefore, the amount of energy and source of life they contributed was extremely small. As for the moon-devouring demon king, he was really dead. Therefore, the source of life and energy he contributed, this was the amount that an expert of this level should really contribute. Unfortunately, it is not easy to kill demon kings and heavenly human demons. Otherwise, I should be able to reach this limit by refining a heavenly human demon. As soon as this thought arose, Qin Shujian extinguished it. It was still unrealistic to think of such a thing now. For him, if he killed all the evil spirits in the true dominion in the North Cloud Prefecture, the remaining evil spirits would be able to contribute the same amount of energy. Chapter 395. It took him half a year. Qin Shujian had already killed 153 of the 176 true provinces in the North Cloud Manor. In the remaining true provinces, there were only 23 left. He secretly estimated the number of evil spirits in the remaining true provinces. Qin Shujian already had a rough idea in his mind. There are 53 sealing altars in the 23 true dominion locations. According to the information given by the North Cloud Marquis, there are about 78 evil spirits in the 53 sealed altars. If that's the case, about a month or so should be enough. Given his rich experience in dealing with evil spirits, unless it was an evil spirit with an 8-star flare array or above, or else, the other evil spirits would not be able to last long in front of it. Only the evil spirits with an 8-star flare array or above could not be dealt with by array formations. Therefore, Qin Shujian had to take action personally. According to his guess, the evil spirits with an 8-star flare array or above were sealed. Their true strength should be at the Demon King level. In other words, they were at least experts at the 4th stage heaven-human realm. In the next month, things were much simpler. The remaining 20-odd true provinces were basically killing evil spirits mindlessly. In the North Cloud Manor, any cultivator with some status knew that the North Cloud Marquis had invited Qin Shujian to take action and kill all the evil spirits sealed in the true provinces. In response, no one was surprised. Ever since Qin Shujian had killed the moon-devouring demon king in the Fallen Moon Manor, the other cultivators had realized that an expert who had condensed 4 universal skylocks was comparable to an almighty expert in the true provinces. Some people guessed condensing 4 universal skylocks might make one even more terrifying than an almighty. However, no one agreed with this statement. Regardless, to a certain extent, Qin Shujian was considered an invincible existence in the true provinces. Although the evil spirits were very powerful and could crush most of the experts of the same level, they could not do anything in front of an existence who had condensed 4 universal skylocks. The current situation was chaotic. Every place where an evil spirit was sealed was an unstable factor. It was reasonable that the North Cloud Marquis wanted to take this opportunity to get rid of the evil spirits. However, the evil fiends in the true dominion of the Baiyun Prefecture had been more or less wiped out. But in the other prefectures, however, he wasn't that lucky. Southern Hill Estate. As one of the forces that had rebelled alongside the fallen Moon Mansion, a huge dispute had arisen within their borders. In particular, the Southern Hill Estate was now the target of many players. In this way, the situation became even more chaotic. But no matter what the situation was, the Imperial Court and Marquis Nanshan's men avoided the place where the evil spirit was sealed. They did not want to touch the seal and cause the evil spirit to break out of the seal. However, the two sides would stagger, but that didn't mean that the players would do the same. To the players, both the Imperial Court and Marquis Nanshan were too powerful. There was no room for them to interfere in the affairs of the ordinary realm and above. This was especially true for the players who had already occupied several ordinary realm cities. Now, he was even more dissatisfied with the current situation. They wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to expand their forces in one fell swoop and shake off the other player dukes. However, if they wanted to attack and occupy the cities of the True Dominion, regardless of how difficult it was, the Imperial Court and Marquis Nanshan could not ignore the existence of the True Dominion city. If the players dared to stretch out their hands, he would definitely suffer a thunderous blow. Regarding this, some players set their sights on the fortresses where the evil spirit was sealed. The strength of the players was weak. However, there were still many talents in all walks of life. Some of their methods, in particular, were enough to shock people. Boom! Monstrous fiendish chi exploded, accompanied by thunder in the sky. A terrifying evil spirit appeared from the seal. The vast fiendish chi that spread out immediately infected many of the fortress's guards, who were caught off guard. Upon seeing this scene, the commander's expression changed. Immediately, he roared furiously, "Everyone, form a military formation. Don't act alone." When his order was issued, in the entire fortress, there were already many soldiers with low cultivation levels who had been infected by the demonic chi and turned into members of the demonic disaster. Most of these people were below the 5th level of the martial initiation realm. They were weak. They did not have the ability to resist the fiendish chi. On the contrary, cultivators who had reached the peak of their chi and blood could barely resist the corrosion of the fiendish chi. As soon as the commander finished speaking, a huge military formation was formed. Monstrous blood chi exploded with a bang. Under the spread of the blood chi, many military souls appeared in the void and surrounded the evil spirit. The fortress commander did not send anyone to report the news of the evil spirit breaking out of the seal, because such a movement could not be hidden from others at all. As the evil spirit broke out of the seal, the news would definitely spread to all sides. What he needed to do now was to desperately delay the evil spirit's pace and not give the other party a chance to create more fiendish disasters. He also needed to buy enough time for other experts to arrive. For the fortress commander, when the evil spirit broke out of the seal, his life would most likely come to an end. If he did not stop the evil spirit, when the fiendish disaster started on a large scale, even if he did not die in the hands of the evil spirit, when the Imperial Court interrogated him, he would definitely die. He would die either way. Rather than being humiliated and executed by the Imperial Court, it was better to die honorably in battle and gain a good reputation. Therefore, after the evil spirit broke out of the seal, the commander did not have the slightest intention of retreating. Instead, he quickly organized the guards to fight against the evil spirit. The guards gathered their military souls. Their strength was also different. It was a pity that the garrison of the stronghold wasn't a true elite. After all, true elites wouldn't be placed in a stronghold and not move around. Although there were not many guards now, in terms of strength, they were not as strong as the 10,000 Chaos Blood Army back then. Boom, boom. While the fortress was fighting with the evil spirit, in the other two True Dominion, the evil spirits of two fortresses also broke out of the seal. Monstrous demonic aura. It directly shook the entire South Mountain Prefecture. Both the Imperial Court and Marquis Nanshan had no choice but to temporarily stop fighting in the face of such an unexpected situation. They turned around to deal with the evil spirit that had broken out of the seal. After all, the evil spirit was not comparable to others. If the delay was too long and the fiendish disaster took shape, it would definitely release other evil spirits. If one of them was not good, perhaps the entire South Mountain Prefecture would become a fiendish city. To Marquis Nanshan, the South Mountain Prefecture was his foundation. Without the South Mountain Prefecture, his strength would be reduced by more than 70%. As for the Imperial Court, the South Mountain Prefecture was the territory of the Great Zhao Nation. It definitely could not become a fiendish city. Or else, even if they subdued the South Mountain Prefecture in the future, it would not be of much use. Even if they could purify the fiendish qi, it would take at least a few years, or even more than a decade. More importantly, the living beings in the fiendish city would be extinct. Such a loss would be too great. However, although the two sides had temporarily stopped fighting on the surface, a large number of military forces were still accumulated at the front line. No one could be sure. Would the other party take this opportunity to launch a large-scale attack? It would be foolish to completely believe the words of the enemy. It could be said that, with the rise of the fiendish disaster, the situation in the South Mountain Prefecture became even more chaotic. Apart from the confrontation at the front line, the Imperial Court and Marquis Nanshan also deployed a large number of military forces to suppress the fiendish disaster, including many experts. This way, the defense forces in the other cities would be much weaker. For the players who had released the fiendish disaster, they had to wait. This was the moment, therefore, when the defenses in the cities were empty. A large number of players immediately attacked the cities. After expending a lot of manpower and resources, they really took down a true Dominion city. After taking down the city, the players who attacked the city had no intention of defending the city. They directly plundered everything of value in the city, leaving behind the city that had been plundered and leaving behind a devastated city. On the forum, some players made a comparison between the cost of attacking the true Dominion city and the loot obtained after conquering the city. In the end, they came to a conclusion. They were the ones who had done so. At the very least, they had earned back double the cost, or perhaps even more than that. One had to know that the true Dominion city and the ordinary Dominion city could not be compared at all. The resources in a true Dominion city, even 3 to 5 ordinary Dominion cities combined, could not compare to that. At this point, the other players were also inspired. They all followed suit and created fiendish disasters in the other prefectures. Then, they took advantage of the chaos to attack the city and occupy it. After plundering it, they retreated. It was impossible to defend the affected city. If they defended the city forcefully, they would only suffer a great loss. Only by plundering the city and retreating could they maximize their benefits. For a time, among the 13 prefectures of the Great Zhao, 11 of them were hit by fiendish disasters. Only the prefectures that were not affected by the fiendish disasters were: one was the Middle State Prefecture. The other was the Baiyun Prefecture. Actually, the fiendish demons had also broken out of the seal in the Middle State Prefecture. However, the Imperial family experts were guarding the Middle State Prefecture. Most of the Great Zhao experts were in the Middle State Prefecture. Therefore, the fiendish demons had not had the chance to create a fiendish disaster when they had just broken out of the seal. They were either suppressed or killed by the Great Zhao experts. As for the Baiyun Prefecture, there was no chance of creating a fiendish disaster there at all. The fiendish demons in the ordinary dominion, they had all been killed by Qin Shujian. Most of the fiendish demons in the true dominion had also been killed by him. As for the fiendish demons sealed in the great dominion of the spirit dominion, besides the guards guarding the place, there were also many backup plans left behind. The place was like an iron bucket, and any players who tried to barge in were all killed. That was not all. As long as any player who barged in and exposed their identity, they would be hunted down without exception. Such a situation, it was not just the Baiyun Prefecture. It was the same for the other prefectures. The fiendish seals in the Spirit Dominion and the Great Dominion were of the utmost importance in all prefectures. There was absolutely no room for any mishaps. At this moment, some people were impressed by the Marquis of Baiyun's foresight. He had taken the initiative to kill the fiendish demons and put an end to the possibility of creating a fiendish disaster. This had caused the Baiyun Prefecture to remain calm from the beginning to the end. The situation had remained stable. Chapter 396. Boom! Shocking spirit energy spread out from the sky, and a vast fluctuation faintly spread throughout the new area. The deacon of the Origin sect, who was ordered to guard the new area, immediately sent someone to report this situation. Actually, there was no need for him to report. The place where Yuan's zone was located was not too far away from the new region. It was half the distance of the ordinary realm. There was no lack of spirit martial realm experts in the Origin sect, and there were even a few god martial realm cultivators. Such a sudden change. However, it was caught by the experts in the sect as soon as it appeared. Immediately, some cultivators took to the air and rushed toward the new area. However, they were stopped by the experts of the Origin sect before they could enter the new area. No one is allowed to approach without the sect master's orders. Ran Yuan took a step forward and shouted loudly. Although he was a spirit god realm cultivator, he knew the person in front of him. It was a prominent sage realm guest elder. Regarding this, Ran Yuan wasn't afraid at all and directly stopped him. Hearing this, the prominent sage realm guest elder didn't descend and just cupped his hands in the air. Sorry to disturb you. After he finished speaking, he directly turned around and didn't intend to barge into the new area. The reason he came was, he was only attracted by the shocking spirit energy. With his knowledge, he could basically guess that a Khanate spirit treasure would definitely be born in the new area. However, this guest elder didn't intend to seize the Khanate spirit treasure. It wasn't that he didn't want to. It was that he didn't dare to. Although Qin Shujian had left the sect for almost a year, his power was increasing day by day. He killed the Demon King in the Fallen Moon Mansion. He killed the Demon King in the North Cloud Mansion. Although the strength he displayed was enough to deter anyone, especially after staying in the Origin sect for so long, he could feel how unfathomable the Origin sect was. Perhaps there was a backup plan left behind in the sect. He would completely fall out with the sect for a mere Khanate spirit treasure. Only a fool would do such a thing. So what if the Khanate spirit treasure was good? Under the premise that he didn't establish a sect, it was just slightly better than an ordinary spirit artifact. Strictly speaking, the difference wasn't too great. If he lost his life because of this, that was truly not worth it. In a courtyard, Zhang Feng was resting on a chair under the shade of a tree. The old man looked even more ordinary now. He did not exude the aura of a cultivator at all, nor did he exude the oppressive aura of a powerful cultivator. Instead, he gave off the feeling of a kind and amiable old man. When the spiritual qi in the new area exploded, Zhang Feng opened his closed eyelids, revealing a pair of eyes that were different from those of an ordinary old man. Instead, they were somewhat bright. Spirit qi explosion. An innate spiritual item has been born. He immediately thought of the source of the spiritual qi and where it came from. More than a year had passed since the birth of the Earth domain. Since the first time they sent people into the new area, they hadn't stopped the second batch of people from entering. This was because phase needed time to nurture. The laws of heaven and earth in that area had not yet completely stabilized. Under the rich spiritual energy, there were still many things in the process of being born. They had not been born together with the birth of the area. Now, there was an explosion of spiritual energy. This was equivalent to saying, finally, a Fae was born after the birth of the Earth domain, which caused a commotion. The birth of a Fae. It's time to explore the new area again. Zhang Feng sat up from the recliner and looked outside the courtyard. The sky was supposed to be clear and bright, but there was a different color in the sky. That was the phenomenon caused by the spiritual qi explosion. If it wasn't the time for a second exploration before, now that the innate spiritual item had been born, it meant that the time had come. Immediately, Zhang Feng directly summoned all the elders for a meeting in Changwu Hall. Now that Qin Shujian was not here, his position as the Great Elder of Technique Imparting was equivalent to the position of the Deputy Sect Master. To a certain extent, he also had the status of acting Sect Master. Therefore, naturally, he also had the right to summon all the elders for a meeting. Changwu Hall. In addition to the elders from the main branch, each of the subsidiary branches had sent an elder to attend the meeting. Sitting at the end, it was Nyo Dali who had been summoned for a meeting. To this sleepy bull demon really didn't want to attend such a meeting every time. But there was no other way. He was the only demon in the demon vein. Besides him, there wasn't even an extra demon. As for the demon beasts below, it wasn't easy for them to grow into real demons. Or rather, it was extremely difficult for demon beasts to transform into demons. Or else, there wouldn't be so many demon beasts in the endless mountain range that had reached the spirit martial realm or even the god martial realm. They still hadn't transformed. It was also because of this. In the demon vein, Nyodali was both an elder and a disciple. He came and went. He alone dealt with all of them. Therefore, every time during the meeting, if Nyodali didn't come, then no one in the demon vein could come. To this bull demon was also very helpless. But there was no other way. If he wanted to rely on a big tree like Yuan Zhong, then he would have to pay the price. A simple meeting like this was already very good for him. If he had to charge and break through the enemy lines and fight, Nyodali felt that it was more dangerous. After all, he was a peace-loving bull demon. He had never had any thoughts of fighting and killing. As for killing the variant humans before, it was completely because he was annoyed by the variant humans and Qin Shujian's coercion and threats that he had no choice but to do so. As for Nyodali's absent-mindedness, the others didn't care too much. The human clan and the demon clan were always different. Although they didn't have any prejudice against this bull demon in the Yuan sect, they didn't have much in common. Fortunately, he only liked to sleep. They were also happy to see that. As for calling him to every meeting, it was just that they didn't want to treat him differently. No matter what, Nyodali was also an elder of the Yuan sect. There were some things they still had to inform him. Otherwise, it would be too much of a bully. No, it should be too much of a bully. After everyone had arrived, Zhang Fong sat in the first seat to the left of the main seat. He looked at everyone and said while stroking his beard, "Elders, you all should be very clear about the spiritual qi explosion in the new area just now." Of course, hearing this, the others didn't hesitate too much and all nodded in reply. Qiuping asked, "First Elder, are you planning to organize people to explore the new area a second time?" He was the branch master of the Wind bloodline and an inner sect elder of the Yuan sect. He knew a lot of things in his heart. This time, Zhang Fong had gathered everyone. Qiuping vaguely knew that this must have something to do with the spiritual qi explosion in the new area. Hearing this, Zhang Fong didn't deny it and said calmly, "It has been more than a year since the last exploration of the new area. During this period of time, the spiritual qi in that area is extremely dense. Coupled with the birth of the innate spiritual items, the spiritual items should be almost ready to be nurtured." While speaking, he paused for a moment and took a deep breath like an ordinary old man. Then, he continued, "Therefore, I have decided that we will explore the new area again in 3 days. Any participating disciples will be able to enter as long as they pay the corresponding contribution points like last time." After speaking, Niu Feng said in a deep voice, "The second exploration of the new area shouldn't be 5,000 contribution points, right? The first exploration had the most treasures. Therefore, it was acceptable to charge 5,000 contribution points. It would be unreasonable if he were to charge another 5,000 contribution points for the second time." Zhang Fong said, "The second exploration naturally won't charge 5,000 contribution points. Every disciple only needs to pay 3,000 contribution points." "Do we have to report this to the sect master?" an elder asked hesitantly. Exploring the new area wasn't a small matter. If they acted on their own and something happened, then they would have to bear the consequences. Zhang Fong glanced at the elder. It was supposed to be a normal glance, but the elder felt as if he'd been struck by lightning, and it was like great terror had arisen in his heart. However, it was like a casual glance. When Zhang Fong moved his gaze away, the elder instantly felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. The scene from before had come and gone quickly, and he'd almost mistaken it for a misperception. However, based on the powerful senses of a domain-enlightened spirit god, that feeling from before, it was absolutely impossible for it to be a misperception. In other words, perhaps the strength of the Grand Elder who kept a low profile had already arrived at an extremely terrifying realm. But when he thought about it, however, he felt that it was impossible. After all, Zheng Fang's original strength was only ordinary. As Yuan Zhong advanced to level 5, the Elder had also advanced to the Airborne realm. However, no matter how strong an Airborne realm cultivator was, it was impossible for him to be so strong. After all, those who could become Yuan Zhong's elders were basically at the second or third tier of the domain enlightened spirit god realm. He was close to the Airborne realm. He was only one step away. No one knew what was going on in the elder's mind. Zheng Fang withdrew his gaze and continued to say calmly, "I've already sent a message to the sect master about the news of the birth of an innate spirit item in the new area. I believe that it won't be long before the corresponding news is sent back. I'll send the message now to avoid any delays in entering the new area and other problems." In the hall, although Zheng Fang's voice wasn't loud, there was an inexplicable power in it that easily covered all the other voices. As for this decision, the others didn't raise any objections. Since this matter had been sent to Qin Shujian, then the biggest problem could be considered to be solved. The rest of the time, since Zheng Fang was the Grand Elder, then he had the corresponding authority. If they were to openly go against him for the sake of entering the new area, then there would definitely be no benefits. Moreover, being able to enter the new area had many benefits for them. Even if they couldn't enter themselves, then the disciples under them could enter as well. Chapter 397. The Birth of a Connate Spiritual Object. Qin Shujian, who had been running around the True Dominion to kill the evil spirits, received the news from Zheng Fang. He could not help but stop in his tracks. He was not too surprised by this news. It was impossible to explore a new district in one go. Some treasures would not appear immediately after the birth of the district. Instead, they would settle down and only appear after a certain period of time. Based on Qin Shujian's understanding of the new district, in the next 10 years, treasures would appear one after another in that district. It was just a matter of how many there were. As for this news, he did not pay much attention to it. Since a new district had appeared, he could just send disciples in to search for it. After all, he could still harvest a wave of contribution points to prevent the sect disciples from having too many contribution points and having nowhere to spend them. As for the resources that would land in the hands of the sect disciples, that would also increase the strength of the entire sect. No matter how one looked at it, there were no disadvantages. In Qin Shujian's opinion, there were many things that he was no longer obsessed with immediate benefits. It was because of short-term benefits. It was no longer of much use to him now. Only things that were long-term, stable, and sustainable were what Qin Shujian needed. Although he had easily harvested over the past 6 months, the sect disciples might not be able to provide him with a source of life even if they spent a few years. However, things like the evil spirits, unless the Fiend Abyss launched a large-scale attack, there would be one less evil spirit in the Great Zhao country. As for the birth of the district, it would only happen once in a few decades. Under such circumstances, how many evil spirits could there be? After this wave of evil spirits was killed, the main source of life would still come from the sect disciples. In that case, the stronger the sect disciples were, the better. As long as the sect disciples were strong enough, every day, they would lie at home and the source of life would come rolling in. There would be no need to do things personally as the sect master, which would make him seem very busy. At the thought of this, Qin Shujian could not help but lament, when will they be able to work harder and not let me, the sect master, go out to fight every day and have a good rest? However, on second thought, there was still a long way to go to achieve this. Strictly speaking, Yuan sect's overall strength wasn't considered weak. Although it was not as good as the top sects, it was comparable to the sects of the major regions. To be able to become a sect in a major region, basically, it took thousands of years or even thousands of years of accumulation to achieve the strength they had today. From the beginning to the end, Yuan sect had only been established for about 3 years. A sect that had been established in 3 years. To be able to compare with other sects that had existed for 1 or 2,000 years was already very impressive. However, for Qin Shujian at this stage, he had no choice. He hadn't fully experienced it yet. The long lifespan of a cultivator was filled with the feeling of the vicissitudes of time. His previous life and the time he had lived in this life. In total, it was less than 30 years. For a person who was not even 30 years old to have thousands of years of accumulation, it was undoubtedly a fantasy. Furthermore, the real reason why Qin Shujian felt that Sky Origin Sect's strength was insufficient was because the current situation was progressing too quickly. He thought about it carefully. Ever since he came to this world, there had always been wicked people who wanted to harm him. There was no need to talk about the players. After he had defeated almost all the players in his territory, an evil fiend had been born. After the evil fiend had been defeated, then, there had been disputes between sections. Strictly speaking, these were not considered a big deal. In the end, everything was fine. The feudal lords rebelled, the human emperor passed away, and the demon beasts wreaked havoc. The demon clan was about to start a war with the human clan at any time. All these things happened one after another, making Qin Shujian feel that his strength was not enough. Or rather, just when he had thought that his strength was about the same, something had happened a few months later, which had clearly told him that his strength was still far from enough. Such a change. This also made Qin Shujian feel somewhat helpless. Therefore, even though Yuan Sek's strength was not bad now, in his opinion, the speed at which he harvested life sources was still too slow. However, after wiping out the True Dominion evil fiends in the Baiyun Prefecture this time, Qin Shujian reckoned that he would not lack any life sources in the near future. When the time came and he advanced to the Divine Martial Realm, he would rely on his array Dao Grandmaster techniques and the many Dao artifacts of Yuan Sect. He felt that, even if a Demon King really came, he would be able to fight the other party. Whether he could defeat the Demon King or not was another matter. However, he would not be unable to fight back. In addition, he had the backing of Marquis Baiyun. As long as he did not seek death, he would be very safe in the near future. He suppressed the thoughts in his mind. Qin Shujian followed the information given to him by Marquis Baiyun in his mind, and finally stepped into another True Dominion. After running around, there were only 3 True Dominion evil fiends that had not been completely eradicated. As for the Devil Calamity in the other prefectures, he had also received the news. Others might not know who the culprit was, but according to Qin Shujian's own guess, there was a high chance that it had something to do with players. After all, both the rebels and the Imperial Court did not want a Devil Calamity to happen. This was because once the Devil Calamity appeared, wherever the Devil Qi invaded, it would turn into a Devil domain and cause the extinction of living beings. This was a method of mutual destruction. No one would do this unless they were truly in a desperate situation. Although the various parties were fighting fiercely now, they were all in a stalemate. There was absolutely no reason for them to do such a thing. After thinking about it, only the players would do such a thing. As long as there were benefits to be gained, the players would not care about the dangers of the Devil Calamity. Qin Shujian did not care too much about this matter. There were so many players in the world. There would always be some people who could do something shocking. He could control one, but he couldn't control the second. As time passed, many players had reached the peak of the true martial realm and some had entered the spiritual god realm. Based on the number of players, to be honest, Qin Shujian really did not want to stir up a hornet's nest. He also did not want to be too active in case he attracted the attention of a large number of players. He had to keep a low profile. Before the players had been able to communicate with each other using the teleportation array, he could still kill them happily. Now that there were teleportation arrays, if millions of players came over, Qin Shujian also had to consider how to retreat in a more dignified manner. This was a fact that he had to admit. The more time passed, the more useful the players were. Unless there was a way to really threaten the players, these players would still act unscrupulously. Even if there were some scruples, it was impossible to really keep them in check. Perhaps, there really is a way to kill the players. At this point, Qin Shujian no longer completely regarded this as a game world. Although the players would not die, nothing was absolute. He could not help but have a thought in his mind. Perhaps the players were not really immortal. It was just that he had not found a way to completely kill the players. Of course, it wasn't as if Qin Shujian hadn't thought of using rewards to tempt some players to kill the people they wanted to kill in real life. However, he did not do so. Once this matter was exposed, as the sect master of Yuan Sect, he would definitely become a thorn in the side of all the players. He would even be viewed as an enemy by all the players. After all, no one would tolerate it. A so-called NPC would threaten their safety in the real world. In this way, no one could guarantee that in the real world, there would not be someone who had received a mission and then assassinated him. At that time, everyone would be in danger. Moreover, Qin Shujian also discovered that the NPCs here actually did not have much understanding of the real world behind the players. If he were to set a precedent, he would officially become a heretic in the eyes of the players at that time. Not to mention that he was an array guru. Even if he was a diviner, when faced with the siege of endless players, there was no possibility of surviving. Therefore, although Qin Shujian had thought of this method in his heart, he had never implemented it, because that was a Pandora's box. Once he did so, the players would definitely go crazy. As for spreading this matter, Qin Shujian could not guarantee that it would not cause any terrible consequences. Anyway, before he broke the pot and fell, he did not intend to fight to the death with the players. There were many players in Yuan's sect now. To put it bluntly, Yuan's sect could be considered as half a player's sect now. The players under him could get what they wanted in the sect, and could also happily provide him with a source of life. Why wouldn't Qin Shujian do it? Therefore, he had never thought of breaking this hornet's nest now. If in the future he really went overboard, or if he was strong enough, Qin Shujian felt, he would properly teach the players the principles of how to be a person. Although he had thoughts in his heart, Qin Shujian's speed was not slow at all. Not long after, a fortress that was not inferior to Donglu Fort in size had already appeared in his line of sight. The moment he saw Qin Shujian, someone on the fortress immediately asked, "Are you Sect Master Qin of Yuan Sect?" "It's me. Sect Master Qin. Please show your token so that we can confirm your identity." After receiving Qin Shujian's confirmation, the general on the fortress was a little excited. However, to be safe, he did not immediately open the gate of the fortress. Hearing this, Qin Shujian did not say anything. He directly took out the token from the storage ring and then used his vital essence to shoot it toward the fortress wall. Very soon, after the general on the wall verified the authenticity of the token, he immediately turned around and went down the city. At the same time, he sent someone to inform the commander of the fortress. Rumble. The gate opened and a group of guards walked out from inside. A general walked at the front and handed back the token with both hands. Then he said with a smile on his face, "Sect Master Qin is finally here. We have been waiting for you for a long time." Chapter 398. Everyone knew. Qin Shujian hunted demons everywhere, and the stronghold was the place where demons were sealed. As long as demons did not exist, there was no need for the stronghold to exist. For the soldiers guarding the stronghold for years was boring and unbearable. There was no room for advancement. After years, they were still in the same place. It could be said that guarding the stronghold was a tough job that no one was willing to do. Although the stronghold was safer than other places, even if there was a war, no one would transfer the stronghold's forces to support. But most of the people who chose to be soldiers wanted to make contributions, get promoted, and get rich. If it was just for stability, there was no need to come here. As for fear of death, there was a very good saying. If you were afraid of death, you would not be a soldier. And guarding the stronghold was not 100% safe. It was okay if there was no problem with the seal. Once there was a problem, it would be a death situation, for various reasons. So after hearing the news that Qin Shujian was killing demons everywhere, these people were so excited. At this moment, they felt like they had been waiting for the stars and the moon. Finally, the person they had been waiting for came. On the other side, Yuan sect was also organizing people to carry out a new round of exploration. But this time, some sects had come. In the Chenggu Hall, Qing Su, the master of the Blue Cloud sect, was sitting in the hall. This former peak of the real martial realm cultivator had entered the spirit martial realm after a year or two of polishing. After all, the other party's foundation was not weak. Under the impact of the spiritual qi, it was not difficult to break through the original shackles. After breaking through to the spirit martial realm, His lifespan had increased a lot from the original foundation. Although he did not rejuvenate, his temperament was more ethereal. Coupled with his white hair and youthful appearance, he was more like an immortal. However, now this immortal old Taoist with a slight smile on his face seemed to be a little restless. For some reason, Zhang Fang in front of him was not much different from him. He had met the first elder of Yuan's sect once before. At that time, although the other party was not weak, he was not as strong as he was now. He did not reveal his strength, but he was still able to give him an extremely strong pressure. There was a long silence. Qing Su coughed lightly and took the initiative to break the silence. Elder Zhang, I came here this time because I heard that your sect plans to explore the new area for the second time. My Blue Cloud sect also hopes to get a place to enter. Even if I have to pay a certain price, it won't be a problem. He had originally intended to be more tactful, but now he no longer had such thoughts. It was not so much a euphemism. It was better to be direct. Hearing this, Zhang Fang stroked his beard and said with a faint smile, Qing Su sect master should know that when the new Earth domain was born, several demons came out of the demon abyss. In the end, it was my sect master who paid a huge price to destroy them. Otherwise, that new area would have already become a demonic land. I naturally understand. Qing Su cupped his hands and said with a smile. He was just taking these words for granted. Whoever took them seriously would be a fool. When the new Earth domain was born, the Blue Cloud sect also had people watching the battle. Although Qin Shujian also took action, it was mainly the imperial court that paid the price. But now, the situation was better than the people. Whatever the other side said, it was what they said. As for Zhang Fang's words, Qing Su saw the hope of getting a place. But in his opinion, if he wanted to get this place, he was afraid that the price he had to pay was not small. Zhang Fang said, Qing Su sect, it's good that you understand. My sect paid a great price for the new Earth domain. Now that all the dangers in the new Earth domain have been settled, the Blue Cloud sect asking for a place to explore really puts me in a difficult position. The Blue Cloud sect has always been on good terms with your sect. Naturally, I understand that your sect is not easy. So I'm willing to pay 1,000,000 taels of silver in exchange for a place to enter the new Earth domain. 1,000,000 taels of silver? Zhang Fang's eyes flickered and the smile on his face became a little more eager. Immediately, after thinking for a while, he said, Since Qing Su sect master insists, then I'll refuse again. It will inevitably damage the relationship between our two sections. Hearing this, Qing Su's face had already revealed a smile. As long as he could get a place to enter the new Earth domain, 1,000,000 taels of silver, in exchange for a place to enter. As for the candidates for the place, he had already prepared them. They were the most outstanding disciples of this generation of the Blue Cloud sect. In terms of strength, they were not much worse than the current disciples of the Yuan sect. When they entered the new Earth domain, as long as they could find 1 or 2 treasures, 1,000,000 taels of silver would not be worth mentioning. If they could get an innate spiritual item, the Blue Cloud sect might be able to rise from a second-class force to a third-class force. When that time comes, the strength of the entire sect would increase a lot. For the sake of the friendship between our two sects, this time the Yuan sect will give the Blue Cloud sect 10 places. A discount of 5,000,000 taels of silver will do. Qing Su was a little stunned. 10 places. This was completely beyond his expectations. 10 places, 5,000,000 taels of silver. Qing Su suddenly smiled bitterly in his heart. He somewhat understood why Zhang Fang agreed so readily. The more people entering the new Earth domain, the better. This was because with each additional person, the cost would increase. Accordingly, if the cost increased, it would be more difficult to get back the money. Not everyone would be able to reap the rewards, and not everyone would be able to keep the rewards if they were to reap the rewards. This time Qing Su planned to take the elite route, only in exchange for a place, and then let that disciple go in to collect the treasures. But now Zhang Fang directly gave him 10 places, especially the other party specially gave him a discount. In this case, he had no way to refuse. Or else that was equivalent to disrespecting the other party. For the Blue Cloud sect, this was not a good thing. Originally, he only intended to offer 1,000,000 taels of silver. But now there was an extra 4 million taels of silver. Qingsu could only accept it helplessly. Seeing this, Zheng Fang also had a smile on his face as he said, "My sect will enter the new area in 2 days' time to explore. At that time, Qingsu sect master can bring your sect's people over. However, I hope that we can settle the payment in advance." "Elder Zheng, don't worry. I will give you the 5 million taels of silver the day after tomorrow." After Qingsu finished, he directly got up and left. Zheng Fang also got up and sent someone to send him out of the Yuan sect. But this time, the arrival of the Blue Cloud sect gave him an idea. Compared to the first exploration of the New Earth domain, the number of treasures in the second exploration was much less. Just like before, the scene of innate spiritual objects everywhere was impossible. According to Zheng Fang's estimation, the number of innate spiritual objects in the New Earth domain was definitely not more than a handful. But so far, there were more than 2,000 disciples in the Yuan sect who were preparing to enter the New Earth domain. Basically, 95% of the treasures in the New Earth domain could not escape the hands of the Yuan sect. This way, it gave Zheng Fang the idea of maximizing the benefits. Perhaps these years of following Qin Shujian had influenced him a lot. And as the Great Elder, in the absence of the sect master, he was also involved in the internal and external affairs of the sect. He could understand how much consumption was needed to maintain such a sect. So, after Qingsu's arrival, Zheng Fang already had the idea of selling the places to enter the New Earth domain. Soon, a piece of news spread out. All the sects in the Liang Mountain domain all received the message from the Yuan sect. 5 million taels of silver. It could be exchanged for 10 places to enter the New Earth domain. No bargaining. After this news spread out, it immediately attracted the attention of the other sections. These sects had long coveted the places of the New Earth domain in the Yuan sect's hands. However, with the Yuan sect in control, they did not dare to take action even if they had any ideas. In the Liang Mountain domain's cultivation world, the Yuan sect was fully deserving of the title of Big Brother Dragon. Speaking of which, the Yuan sect was the one who kept his word in all the spirit domains in the North Cloud Manor. Therefore, although these sects were very tempted by the New Earth domain, no one dared to force their way in or snatch the places. However, it was different now. The Yuan sect's public sale of the places of entry immediately made these sects have lively thoughts. Was 5 million taels of silver a lot? A lot. To these sects, which were considered spirit domain sects on the surface, but were actually not much different from the true Dominion sects, taking out 5 million taels of silver could be described as a loss to them. However, although 5 million taels of silver was a lot, to many sects, it was more important to exchange for the places to enter the New Earth domain. The scene of the birth of the innate spiritual object a few days ago had already spread throughout the Liang Mountain domain. To the sects and powers, if they could obtain an innate spiritual object to suppress the light from providence, they might be able to upgrade their original power level. This was not a wild guess. Currently, apart from the Yuan sect, most of the sects and powers in the Liang Mountain domain were second-class powers. One more innate spiritual object or one less innate spiritual object could affect the upgrade of a power. Spending 5 million taels of silver to enter the New Earth domain. If they did not obtain anything, they would naturally lose everything. However, if they were lucky enough to obtain an innate spiritual object, even 50 million taels of silver would not be enough to exchange for it, let alone 5 million taels of silver. The upgrade of a power level. It would not be as simple as 1 or 2 people obtaining good fortune. It would affect everyone in the sect. Although the chances of obtaining an innate spiritual object were slim, however, it was still possible. Spending 5 million taels of silver to obtain a chance to upgrade one's power was an irresistible temptation in the eyes of many people. Therefore, after the Yuan sect spread the news, all the sects in the Liang Mountain domain started to prepare their taels of silver and choose suitable people to enter the New Earth domain in 2 days. Blue Cloud sect. When Qingsu received this news, he was also stunned for a moment. However, he quickly recovered. No matter how many powers entered the New Earth domain, it would not have much of an impact on the Blue Cloud sect. Chapter 399. There was news of the birth of a Khanate spirit item in the new district. It wasn't just the Liang Mountain Spirit Protectorate. The other spirit protectorates, and even the great protectorates received the news as well. It was fine for the itinerant cultivators. To them, a Khanate spirit item was just a slightly stronger spirit weapon that could grow. Furthermore, a Khanate spirit item had to grow into a powerful spirit weapon. It would easily take hundreds or even thousands of years. For ordinary cultivators, a few hundred years was still fine. If it took thousands of years, they might have already died a few times. Therefore, a Khanate spirit item wasn't very attractive to them. However, while a Khanate spirit item wasn't very attractive to itinerant cultivators, it was very attractive to the sections. The large sects of the Spirit Protectorate and the Great Protectorate, which had Dao artifacts, naturally wouldn't covet a Khanate spirit item too much. However, for ordinary sects that only had one or two spirit weapons, they desired a Khanate spirit item too much. One more spirit item. One less spirit item. To them, it was perhaps the difference between being able to upgrade their faction or not. Therefore, when Yuan Zhong spread the news to the large sects of the Spirit Mountain Spirit Protectorate that they could exchange silver taels for a spot to enter the new district, the sects of the other districts were also tempted. Unfortunately, the prerequisite for paying 5 million taels of silver for a spot was that they had to be from the Liang Mountain Spirit Protectorate. If they weren't from the Liang Mountain Spirit Protectorate or other factions, they had to pay 20 million taels of silver to obtain 10 spots. Immediately, the sects of the other districts hesitated. 20 million taels of silver. The sects of the True Dominion were immediately extinguished. To them, even if they emptied their entire family's fortune, they might not be able to pay this amount. Even if they did, the entire sect would become an empty shell. It would be fine if they could obtain a Khanate spirit item. However, if they couldn't obtain anything, that would be a total loss. The sects of the True Dominion couldn't afford this price. The ordinary sects of the Spirit Protectorate and the Great Protectorate were also hesitant. 20 million taels of silver. They could pay this amount. However, once they took it out, it would be enough to cause serious damage to their essence chi. Regarding this, Yuan Zhong wasn't anxious at all. He had a new district in his hands, and his attitude was very firm. After all, it wasn't every place. They all had the right to have a new district. If the Great Zhao was a world, then the border of the world was the Endless Mountain Range. No one knew how long and large the Endless Mountain Range was. They only knew that the majority of the Great Zhao border was surrounded by the Endless Mountain Range. In this way, even if there were regions, it would have nothing to do with the human race. It would only be the demon race's business. Very few people would charge into the Endless Mountain Range to snatch things from the demon clan. As for places like the Liang Mountain Spirit Realm that were not completely covered by the Endless Mountain Range, they were able to give birth to new ordinary realms. Therefore, although it could be said that every once in a while, a new region would be born, but in reality, there weren't many regions that could be truly created. One could imagine how precious this new piece of land in Yuan Zhong's hands was. If it was any other sect, even the great sects of the large regions did not have the ability to occupy a new region by themselves. Only someone like Yuan Zhong would do something like this. Only a force that was comparable to a top sect could withstand the pressure from all sides and directly control a region. To the people of Yuan's sect, the new Earth domain is within me. If you want to enter, you just have to pay. But if he wanted to enter without paying, he could just think about it. In the face of such an attitude, some sects could only retreat. But at the same time, there were also sects that gritted their teeth and were willing to use 20 million taels of silver to fight for a chance to obtain the innate spiritual item. But to be able to take out so much silver, basically, they were sects that had hundreds or even thousands of years of heritage. They were sects that were above the spirit realm. After all, the higher the region, the more vast it was. The region was vast. The more resources each sect could obtain, the more they would be able to obtain. Soon 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. On this day, cultivators from all sects gathered in the Liang Mountain Spirit Realm. Often, people could be seen flying in the sky. They were either alone or with their disciples. Naturally, this attracted the attention of many people. After all, Although the Liang Mountain spirit realm was a spirit realm, there were no cultivators that could reach the airborne realm other than Yuan sect. The strongest. They were just people like Qing Su and Gue Haichuan who had just broken through the shackles of the true martial realm and were still at the first level of the spiritual martial realm. But when these cultivators were heading to Liang Mountain City, they all consciously lowered their bodies and walked into the city on foot. Of course, there were also some who wanted to try to fly into the city, but they were all suppressed by the forbidden sky formation and fell to the ground in a sorry state. Seeing this, some of the people who had other thoughts in their hearts also suppressed their own thoughts. Boom! A carriage broke through the air. The one pulling the carriage was a demonic beast with 2 horns, green eyes, and 4 hooves that looked like fiery clouds. When the carriage streaked across the sky, it left behind a faint trace of flames. A terrifying aura also spread out from the demonic beast. Hiss! This demonic beast can't be in the airborne realm. The Green Eyes Fire Cloud Beast is a demonic beast cultivated by the Fong family of the Northern Mountain Grand region. It seems that this time, it should be someone from the Fong family. At this time, the knowledgeable people explained. Hearing this, some people were puzzled, while others were shocked. The Fong family of the Northern Mountain Grand region. Someone said solemnly. In the cultivation world, there were sects and aristocratic families. Similar to the sects, which accepted everyone and taught everyone regardless of background, the aristocratic families were more old-fashioned and focused on the inheritance of their own bloodline. Unless the disciple had the bloodline of the aristocratic families. Or else, anyone who wanted to enter the aristocratic families could at most be a guest or a consecrator. As for others, they could at most become servants. It was impossible to truly enter the core of the aristocratic families. In this way, it was also destined that the aristocratic families did not have as many people as the sections. However, because the bloodline left behind by the strong had all kinds of magic, even if they were to cultivate, they would be much faster than ordinary cultivators. Therefore, although there were not many people in the aristocratic families, in terms of the number of strong people, they were not inferior to the sections. Some powerful aristocratic families, they were even much stronger than the ordinary sections. Among them was the Fong family. It was a famous aristocratic family in the Northern Mountain Grand region. Rumor has it that the Fong family was once a family passed down by a powerful person. Its foundation is really extraordinary. It can actually pull such a demonic beast. Seeing the carriage land in front of the city gate, someone also sighed with emotion. The Green Eyes Fire Cloud Beast. Those who could pull a carriage in the air were at least in the airborne realm. Even in the large sects of the spirit realm, the airborne realm was considered the backbone of the combat strength. In the absence of the prominent saint realm, the airborne realm was the strongest. But in the Fong family, they were only used to pull carriages. Although such demonic beasts were not good at fighting and killing, and if they did not use the ability to fly, even spirit god realm cultivators might not be able to defeat them. But in the end, it was still an airborne realm demonic beast. Just this point alone was enough to show off. Hearing this, someone sneered and said, "So what if the Fong family is powerful? In the front of Liangshan City, they will obediently follow the carriage. In my opinion, the aristocratic families are not worth mentioning in front of the origin sect." Hearing this, Li Changsho said. Many people fell silent. That's right. Although the Fong family was powerful, that powerful person had fallen many years ago. The strongest person in the Fong family was only at the peak of the divine martial realm. It was not certain if they could have a diviner. In comparison, the origin sect had Qin Shujian, the reincarnation of a powerful person, holding down the fort. It could be said to be at the peak of its power. It would be fine if the two were not compared. But in comparison, the Fong family was just OSO. As long as Qin Shujian was there, not to mention one Fong family, even 3 or 5 Fong families might not be able to cause any trouble. After all, the aristocratic families might have trump cards. But a powerful reincarnation of a powerful person would definitely have trump cards unknown to others. And the other party's battle record was not weak at all. He could severely injure demons at their peak and also kill monster kings of the monster race. No matter how one looked at it, Qin Shujian's strength was enough to be described as shocking. The carriage stopped. Several young people came out and walked into the city. As for the blue-eyed fire cloud beast, it quietly stayed where it was without moving. This is Liangshan City. It doesn't look like much. The city is not big either. It's really disappointing. Among the few people, two of them looked at the Liangshan City in front of them and shook their heads as they commented. In their opinion, the Liangshan City in front of them was the smallest among all the sects and cities in the big regions. At this time, the leader shouted coldly, "It doesn't matter how tall a mountain is. It's as long as there is an immortal. So what if Liangshan City is big or small? With sect leader Qin here, this is a holy land." As he said this, he turned around and coldly glanced at the few people. "This is not the Fong family. Behave yourselves. If you offend Yuan Zong, the Fong family will not be able to protect you." His cold and harsh tone immediately made the few people behind him shut their mouths. Seeing this, Fong Peng felt somewhat helpless, but he did not say anything more on this issue. The Fong family was not as good as it used to be. Especially after the loss of the two most precious treasures of the family, their luck had dropped by a lot. Or else, when Yuan Zong gave out the quota to enter the new area, the Fong family would not have spent 20 million taels of silver in exchange for a chance to enter the new area. It was because they had no other choice but to do so. If they could not obtain one or two innate spiritual items to replenish their luck, the family's luck would continue to decline. In the long run, they might not even be able to retain their current status. A long time of prosperity will eventually decline. This sentence involuntarily appeared in Fong Peng's mind. Back then, the Fong family could be said to be at its peak and was comparable to the top sections. Now, even the sects of the big regions were slightly inferior. The difference between them, this was the only way to describe it. Following the arrival of the Fong family in Liangshan City, other sects, forces, and even aristocratic families followed suit. For a time, Liangshan City was originally a place where experts gathered. Instantly, the number of powerhouses increased. Chapter 400. Within the city governor's estate. Because Qin Shujian wasn't here, as the Grand Elder, Zhang Fong had temporarily taken over the position of sect master and met with the other sects and powers. As for Zhang Fong, all those who were able to come here weren't unfamiliar with him. This Grand Elder of the Sky Origin School could be considered to possess quite a reputation. I'm very relieved that all of you were able to come here today, so I'll get straight to the point. The laws of the heavens and the earth in the new area haven't stabilized yet, so if someone with a cultivation that's too strong enters, then it would be unavoidable to cause harm. At the seat of the host, Zhang Fong gazed at all of them, and then he cupped his hands slightly before speaking frankly. So, amongst the cultivators that are entering this time, no one is allowed to surpass the airborne realm, and the strongest is at the domain enlightened spirit god realm. As soon as these words were spoken, most of them had calm expressions, but there were some whose expressions changed slightly. Elder Zhang, it has only been 2 years since the new area was born, and it can even accommodate cultivators at the domain enlightened spirit god realm. Now, it's only restricted to the domain enlightened spirit god realm. Isn't it a little inappropriate? Someone instantly refuted. After that, someone else chimed in as well. To all of them, they'd already calculated the limits of the new area, and then they'd arranged for people at that realm to come here. Now, Sky Origin School's actions could be said to have completely disrupted their plans. Zhang Fong's expression remained unchanged as he said indifferently, "The new area has always been under the control of my sect, so my sect is extremely well aware of the changes. Domain enlightened spirit god realm cultivators can enter at most, and cultivators above this realm aren't allowed to enter." When he spoke up to here, he glanced at those cultivators from the sects that spoke and spoke. "If you don't want to go, then you can take your people and leave right now. I'll absolutely not stop you." It was a simple glance, yet it emanated an extremely strong pressure. It wasn't a big deal for cultivators at the God Martial realm, but ordinary cultivators at the domain enlightened spirit god realm felt indescribably threatened by this glance. When they heard these words, the expressions of those people that spoke against it instantly became unsightly. Zhang Fong was clearly trying to tell them now, pay the money and obtain a spot. then turn around and leave. If it was any other sect, these people would have turned hostile a long time ago. But when they thought about how it was Sky Origin School, they suppressed the flames of their hearts. There was no other way. They were not afraid of ordinary sections. However, these sects were still fearful of a top-notch sect like Yuan sect. However, it wasn't like everyone didn't care about the 20 million taels of silver. Therefore, after Zheng Fang finished speaking, a person from a sect immediately stood up, cupped his hands and said, "My sect will not participate in this matter. Goodbye." "My sect won't participate either. Goodbye." After the first person left, the second and third person soon followed suit. Regarding this, Zheng Fang's figure remained motionless. He did not waver in the slightest because of these people's departure. Compared to the many sects and forces in the hall, only a few sects had left. Seeing those sects leaving, many people sneered in their hearts. He just had to use his brain to think. Everyone knew that it was impossible for the Yuan sect to allow cultivators above the airborne realm to enter the new area. Why didn't he take a look at the standards of the disciples of Yuan sect right now? He was able to fly. They were all elders at the very least. Let these elders enter and compete with the disciples of the various sects for treasures. Not to mention anything else. Just the loss of face alone was enough. So, only the disciples of the Yuan sect could enter the new area this time. However, the strongest disciple of the Yuan sect was only at the domain spirit god realm. In that case, it was destined that the cultivators of the other sects and forces that could enter the new area would only be at the domain spirit god realm at most. After all, it was impossible for the Yuan sect to allow cultivators above the domain spirit god realm to enter for the sake of some silver. That was no different than giving away the treasures within the new area. So, most of the sects and forces present here were preparing to enter the new area this time. Only some people who were pretending to be smart would think of taking advantage of this. Moreover, in the eyes of the other sects and forces, these people were pretending to be smart and might bring harm to themselves. The Yuan sect had been established for a few years. All the powers that wanted to take advantage of the Yuan sect had been completely uprooted now. Even if they succeeded, none of them would be able to escape when the Yuan sect came to settle the score with them. Not to mention, it was fine if they didn't come. But now that they'd come and left, it was unavoidable that they'd embarrass the Yuan sect. No matter what, it was impossible for them to gain any benefits. After a short moment, no one in the hall stood up. A warm smile appeared on Zheng Fang's face instead. In his opinion, the situation before him was within his expectations. Su Yuanming spoke from the side instead, and he smiled faintly. "Those who have objections have left. Everyone else, pay up. Pay up first. Only then would they be able to enter the new area." The members of the other powers didn't say anything when they heard this, and they withdrew the corresponding silver notes and passed it over to Su Yuanming. It was easily a few million, or even a few tens of millions of silver. It was impossible to convert all of it into cash, and they could only use silver notes to replace it. After all, if it was converted into cash, then they would have to fill up a storage ring. Moreover, it wasn't convenient to pay up. However, these powers didn't have the intention to give the entire storage ring to the Yuan sect. No matter what, a storage ring was extremely valuable as well. If so much silver wasn't enough, then they would have to pay for a storage ring as well. That would be a huge loss. The rest of the process was very simple. After they paid up, after that, they could enter the new area with the members of the Yuan sect. Many powers had paid the price of 10 spots. However, only a few people had truly entered the new area. Only some sects and powers could fill up 10 spots. Most of the aristocratic families couldn't fill it up. There was nothing they could do about it. The Yuan sect only sold 10 spots, and it was a fixed 10 spots. Either they bought it, or they didn't buy it. For some powers, it wasn't necessary to pay too much for people to enter the new area. Too many people would make them a bigger target. On the contrary, it was easier to get treasures by sending some elite disciples in. Besides that, it could also reduce some unnecessary losses. After all, it would be a loss if they recklessly filled up the number of disciples and lost a few of them. After all, nurturing disciples. It wasn't an easy thing to do. However, when they saw the dense crowd of 2,000 to 3,000 people in the Yuan sect, the corners of their eyes twitched violently. They suddenly felt that. Don't you think I have too few people? The number of people on the other side was a little too much. However, now that the money had been paid and the number of people had been fixed, there was nothing they could do about it. Fang Peng's expression was slightly solemn as he looked at the numerous Yuan sect disciples, and then he sent a voice transmission. After today, all of you follow me closely and don't act on your own. Otherwise, don't blame me for not warning you if you die in there. Yes. As for the other Fang clan disciples, they nodded in response. To tell the truth, the 2,000 to 3,000 Yuan sect disciples had shocked them. Although only a few of them were at the domain enlightened spirit god realm, most of them were at the true martial realm. However, there were really too many of them. Before they reached the airborne realm, even though domain enlightened spirit god realm cultivators were formidable, the gap between them and true martial realm cultivators wasn't too great. A domain enlightened spirit god realm cultivator could deal with a few or a dozen true martial realm cultivators. Then when their divine sense was exhausted, the domain enlightened spirit god realm cultivator would be no different from a true martial realm cultivator. So long as there were 10 to 20 outer aura realm cultivators, it was enough to crush a domain enlightened spirit god realm cultivator. If they didn't break through to the airborne realm, this gap wouldn't reach the point of transformation. However, when they looked at Fang Peng who stood before them, they calmed down slightly. Fang Peng's strength could be considered to be at the top of the younger generation of the Fang clan. Otherwise, the Fang clan wouldn't let him lead the group. In terms of strength, even though Fang Peng was at the domain enlightened spirit god realm, he had a record of killing airborne realm cultivators. Such a person who could surmount a realm to kill an enemy in the spirit martial realm could be considered a genius. After that, when Zheng Fang gave the order, Zhang Wuji's expression changed. All the Yuan sect disciples were the first to enter the freshman area. As for the other forces, they weren't willing to fall behind. Even though they entered sooner or later, a slight difference in time was very difficult to change anything. However, one step ahead, one step ahead. In the end, it was a good thing to enter before the others. Boom! The lightning blade tore through the sky, and a 60m tall demon screamed in pain. At the same time, its body exploded, and blood gushed out madly like a fountain. In the next instant, it was the bright king hellfire that burned and completely enveloped it. As more and more demons were refined, and the origin returning ancestral canon had advanced to perfection, the power of the bright king hellfire. It was also gradually becoming stronger. Within the red flames, endless killing intent was revealed, as if it could melt everything. Under the devouring of the bright king hellfire, the demon's powerful body melted like magma. A large amount of demonic chi erupted from its body, trying to extinguish the bright king hellfire, but it became fuel for the flames instead. Only less than 5 minutes had passed. Only Yuan corroding bone powder was left on the ground. A fire lotus floated quietly in the air. Qin Shujian held the fire lotus with one hand and swallowed the energy. The spirit god immediately strengthened a little, but it didn't make a big breakthrough. The spirit god is 970 feet tall. I'm about to reach my limit. After devouring so many demons, he could already feel that the spirit god was close to its limit. This limit, it wasn't a problem with the physical body, but the spirit god had truly reached its limit. If it couldn't transform, it was almost impossible to go any higher. This was the limit of the laws of heaven and earth, and it wasn't something that could be broken through by simple human strength. The array shattered. The 18 square array discs were put into the storage ring. Qin Shujian waved his hand and set up a purification array, covering the area that was contaminated by the demonic qi. Then, after bidding farewell to the commander of this stronghold, he immediately flew into the sky and left. This time, Qin Shujian didn't want to go to the other true dominion. Instead, he wanted to go to the Liang Mountain Spirit Protectorate. By now, all the true dominion evil devils in the Bayun Manor had been killed by him. The demons had all been eliminated. He had been out for a long time, so it was time to go back. Chapter 401. Back to the Liang Mountain spiritual region. It didn't take too much time. In less than half a day, Qin Shujian had already appeared in Liang Mountain City. This time, he didn't stay in the city for too long and directly returned to the Yuan sect. Back to the Yuan sect. Qin Shujian didn't deliberately hide his figure. In addition, there were now many disciples in the Yuan sect. Before he even set foot on Liang Mountain, he was recognized by others. Greetings, Sect Master. Sect Master. Greetings, Sect Master. Many people stopped and saluted. As for why Qin Shujian came back from the outside, or when he came back, they didn't guess too much. After all, the Sect Master's whereabouts. He didn't need to explain anything to these disciples. However, some of the player disciples knew something. In the past half a year, Qin Shujian had been hunting demons everywhere, causing quite a commotion. Naturally, it had also caused quite a stir. Even, many players had recorded videos of his whereabouts and posted them on the forum. Only during this period of time, because of the death of the human emperor, all the players' attention fell on the person who became the Duke. They didn't care about the other videos. And during this period of time, this Liang Mountain stronghold master didn't do anything shocking, so the players didn't pay too much attention to him. After all, the world was so big. It was impossible to always keep an eye on one person. As the game continued to progress, there were NPCs more powerful than Qin Shujian. The Liang Mountain stronghold master, who was thought to be very strong in the past, was also very strong now. However, he couldn't be as eye-catching as he was in the past. Back to the Yuan sect. The first thing Qin Shujian did was to gather all the elders in the Chengwu Hall for a meeting. After leaving the sect for so long, there were always some things that he needed to know. Soon, the elders of the various branches, as well as the elders of the main sect, had already gathered in the Chengwu Hall. As Qin Shujian appeared, everyone stood up, saluted and said, "Greetings, Sect Master. Sit down." "Thank you, Sect Master." When the others heard this, they thanked him and sat down in their seats. Qin Shujian looked at everyone. His spiritual eye was already working. It had been such a long time. Even if he didn't check the cultivation progress of these elders, at the very least, he had to check if there were any changes in their loyalty. The so-called loyalty. He wasn't sure if it was for him, the sect master, or for the entire sect. But there was one thing that was beyond doubt. As long as the loyalty was high enough, there would basically be no problem. He glanced over. Everyone's loyalty and other attributes appeared before Qin Shujian's eyes. He looked at them one by one. He did not find anything out of the ordinary. Everyone's loyalty didn't change much compared to before. From this, it could be seen. Currently, the sect was relatively stable. As long as there were no problems with the higher-ups, even if there were some problems with the disciples below, it wouldn't have much of an impact on the entire sect. As for the realm, Yi Futian was a genius. However, there were a few elders who made breakthroughs. After all, the density of Yuan sect's spiritual qi was rising sharply. Some people were already at the edge of this realm. Therefore, it was not strange for them to make a breakthrough. Other than that, most of the people were still standing on the spot. After reaching the spiritual martial realm, each level needed time to polish. The lifespan of the spiritual martial realm was at most 1,000 years. The shortest was at least a few hundred years. A long lifespan. It was also destined that after reaching this level, it was impossible for the realm to advance by leaps and bounds. As for the others, Qin Shujian didn't have much hope. His real attention fell on Yodali. The bull demon who was sitting and sleeping suddenly felt a chill. Suddenly, he felt a chill run down his spine. He couldn't help but shiver. Coincidentally, he met Qin Shujian's gaze. Instantly, Nyodali felt that the surrounding atmosphere was a bit strange. He couldn't help but reveal a simple and honest smile. It could be considered as covering up the awkwardness in his heart. Then, his body also sat up a bit. As for Qin Shujian, at this moment, his heart was slightly shocked. The 5th level of the spiritual martial realm. If he remembered correctly, the last time he saw Nyodali, he was only at the 4th level of the spiritual martial realm. So quickly, he reached the 5th level of the spiritual martial realm. Such a cultivation speed made Qin Shujian feel shocked in his heart. At the same time, he also felt that it was a bit strange. This cultivation speed is too fast. He couldn't help but secretly ridicule. Unless Nyodali was the same as him, and also had a method similar to the source of life. However, even if he could also use the source of life to improve, he still needed to harvest the source of life. From the news that Qin Shujian received, other than sleeping in the Demon Ox Cave, he was still sleeping in the Demon Ox Cave. As for the monsters in the Demon Vein, they were all well-behaved and almost didn't take half a step out of the Lion-Tiger Plain. In this case, he also didn't have the chance to harvest the source of life. There was no reason for it. A guess suddenly appeared in Qin Shujian's mind. The reincarnation of a powerful being. Perhaps this bull demon was the reincarnation of a legendary powerful being. Only then could he have such a speed of progress. However, after all, a guess was just a guess. He himself didn't know whether the reincarnation of a powerful being was like Nyodali, who could increase his strength just by sleeping. But this guess, Qin Shujian had already secretly noted it down. If there was a chance in the future, he would definitely figure it out. An existence that was suspected to be the reincarnation of a powerful being, whether it was the human clan or the monster clan, they all needed to treat it with caution. Until now, Qin Shujian also had a lot of understanding about the powerful being. Such a powerful being, if he really fully recovered, it would also be a big problem. However, he looked at Nyodali's loyalty and didn't take any measures now. No matter what, Nyodali was now considered loyal to him and Yuanzong. It was impossible to kill him in the cradle just because of a guess. As for Nyodali, who was sitting upright, he didn't know that he had just walked through the gates of hell. After Qin Shujian looked away, only then did his straightened back relax once more. His strength was increasing day by day, but when he met the gaze of the sect master, Nyodali still felt a lot of pressure. He put the matter of Nyodali aside for the time being. Qin Shujian glanced at the others again, but in the end, his gaze lingered on Zhang Feng for a while. This old man was only at the 4th level of the martial arts realm. He had always thought that his cultivation talent was very ordinary. No matter what, he had wasted dozens of years on cultivation and barely reached the 4th level of the martial arts realm. If it wasn't for Yuanzong's continuous promotion, Zhang Feng might not even be able to break through to the 6th level of the martial arts realm. And after Yuanzong became a 5th level force, he also broke through to the 4th level of the spiritual martial realm, the airborne realm. But when Qin Shujian looked again, he found that he had broken through to the 5th level of the spiritual martial realm, the same level as Nyodali. How long had it been since Yuanzong became a 5th level force? That was more than a year's time. More than a year's time. From the 4th level of the spiritual martial realm to the 5th level of the spiritual martial realm, this talent was already very strong, even stronger than ordinary geniuses. It was only because he had been running around killing demons during this period of time. He didn't check much of the system's information. Now, when he looked back, he saw that Zhang Feng had already broken through to the 5th level of the spiritual martial realm a few months ago. For that, although Qin Shujian was surprised, he was more gratified. No matter what, the stronger the strength of the people in Yuanzong, the greater the benefits for him. It was much better than raising a bunch of vermin who only knew how to rely on the sect to advance, but didn't cultivate on their own. He took a simple glance at the progress of the cultivation base of the people present. Qin Shujian said, "In this period of time, did anything happen in the sect?" After that, Su Yuaming first cupped his hands and said, "Sect Master, half a month ago, a natural spiritual object appeared in the new area. Then, we organized the disciples of the sect to explore, and also sold a part of the quota to other sections. How was the harvest? This time, in the exploration of the new area, we obtained 3 natural spiritual objects, some other materials, and also sold the quota to enter the new area. Our sect made a profit of 435 million taels. 3 natural spiritual objects. 435 million taels." Hearing this, Li Changshu said. Qin Shujian also had a strange look in his eyes, and a smile appeared on his face. Not counting the other harvest, this time, the harvest in the sect was not small at all, especially the 400 million taels of silver. He also received the corresponding message that Zhang Feng, sold the 17th quota to the new area. However, Qin Shujian didn't expect, this time alone, there were more than 400 million taels of silver. Even for the current Yuan zone, this was a great harvest, enough to run the sect for quite a long time. At least, without enlarging the scale of the operation. In the next 10 years, the sect didn't need to worry about money. Subsequently, Qin Shujian asked about the situation in the sect and the various branches. The others also reported the truth. Half a year was not a long time. A lot of things wouldn't change much. Every elder gave a little explanation. Qin Shujian also had some understanding of the current affairs in the sect and roughly understood some things in his heart. Immediately, another elder cupped his hands and said, "Sect Master, now our sect's contribution points can't be traded. Many disciples use foreign objects to trade and then convert them into contribution points. There will also be a certain deviation. Some disciples hope that the rules of free trading of contribution points can be opened." At this point, that elder paused and then said, "But I also think that if contribution points can be traded freely, our sect's contribution points will definitely replace many things, and it will also be of great benefit to the sect's future development." Hearing that, many elders nodded in agreement. "I will consider the matter of contribution points. If there is nothing else, let's call it a day. We will take our leave." Chapter 402. In the courtyard, Qin Shujian felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity when he returned to a place he was familiar with. As for the osmanthus tree, in just half a year, there was not much change. Sitting in the courtyard, he was thinking about something. Just like what the elders said before, there were still certain problems with the current Yuan sect's contribution point system. Among them, the biggest problem was that contribution points could not be traded. Contribution points could not be traded. It could only be converted into contribution points under the premise of bartering. In this way, the role of contribution points would be greatly weakened. However, the identity tokens were created by the system and the contribution point system was also given by the system. From the beginning to the end, the identity tokens given by the system could not be traded for contribution points, unless Qin Shujian gave everyone the right to modify the contribution points. But in that case, the entire sect's contribution point system would be completely messed up. On the contrary, if he could solve the problem of contribution points trading, there might not be any effect in the short term. But over time, the contribution point system in the sect would gradually replace many things. To a certain extent, it would also be smoother and more flexible than now. It would not be too rigid. I remember that the other sects should have a similar contribution point system. Qin Shujian thought about it and associated it with the other sections. However, he did not know much about how the other sects operated internally. Just from the matter of contribution points trading, Qin Shujian had other ideas. If the identity tokens made by the system cannot be traded for contribution points freely, then I can only abandon this method and use other methods. The first thing he thought of was casting. Then the identity tokens given by the system had flaws. Then he could only make the corresponding identity tokens himself. With the means of casting, it might not be impossible. But to make such an identity token, the means involved are not something a mere upper-grade forger can do. Even if an upper-grade forger can cast an identity token, there must be a big flaw in it, and it is easy for others to take advantage of it. After all, the identity token and contribution points are related to the foundation of the sect. This matter cannot be left to others. Thoughts flashed through Qin Shujian's mind. In the end, he helplessly discovered something. This matter still had to fall on him. However, when Qin Shujian thought about the 20,000+ identity tokens, he felt that he had to put this matter aside for now. This was not something that could be accomplished overnight. Furthermore, he still had to study the methods involved. Right now, for him, the most important thing. It was better for him to break through his original realm and officially enter the God martial arts realm. Thinking of this, Qin Shujian turned his attention to his own attributes, especially the luck points column. Over 10,000 luck points. Now, it had already broken through the limit of 10,000 points, and it was a few dozen points more. However, What made him feel a little regretful was that, when his luck broke through 10,000 points, the system did not give him any information. In other words, 10,000 points of luck points did not bring about too many transformations. After looking away from the luck value, Qin Shujian turned his attention to the life source. Now, he had more than 50 million points of life source. 50 million points of life source. For the 5 cultivation methods that needed to be improved, it was only a drop in the bucket. If all 10,000 luck points were to be converted into life source, it was enough to directly improve his realm to the God martial arts realm. However, Qin Shujian did not do so immediately. Luck points were hard to come by. Unless it was a last resort, it was better to keep it. As for whether to improve the Dao artifact, upgrade the sect level, or convert it into life source to improve his strength, this could only be discussed when the time came. Thinking of this, Qin Shujian got up and left the courtyard where he was. Not long after, he found Su Yuanming. I wonder why the sect master came here, Su Yuanming asked in confusion. If it was not necessary, the other party would not come here casually. Thinking about it carefully, the number of times Qin Shujian came here could be counted on one hand, and every time he came, it was basically for something. Thinking of this, Su Yuanming was also a little helpless. Looking for a stone bench to sit down, Qin Shujian said, "Elder Su, sit down first. I have something to tell you." "Please tell me, sect master." Su Yuanming sat down. "Elder Su, use the Yuan sect's connections to help me find out what the chaser is. This matter must be kept secret and not spread too much." "Chaser?" Su Yuanming was startled, then nodded and said, "This matter, I know. Chaser." This name was also very unfamiliar to him. However, looking at Qin Shujian's solemn expression and what he said, Su Yuanming could also know that the so-called chaser was definitely not a simple character. The chaser may be a name, or it may be the name of a force. Qin Shujian said in a deep voice, "You focus on these 2 points and check carefully." For the chaser, he was also very concerned now. Back then, the Huading Cave Mansion could contribute the ability of a spiritual eye. There must be other things. If the chaser only represented a person, then it was nothing. It could only be said that he coincidentally found an expert's cave mansion. But if the chaser was a force, then it was not simple. If the chaser was a force, then the person who left the Huading Cave Mansion could only be regarded as one of the forces. One of the forces could leave the Huading Cave Mansion and the spiritual eye. Then the entire force of the chaser, how huge would it be? But for these things, Qin Shujian didn't have any definite certainty. Everything was just a guess. So, the most important thing now was to find a way to find out about the chaser. Then find a way to find a secret realm similar to the Huading Cave Mansion. After all, there were still 2 doors in the Huading Cave Mansion that had not been opened. Qin Shujian put himself in his shoes and guessed. If he was the one who built the cave mansion, it was impossible to destroy the things behind the other 2 doors. So, there might be other places where the Huading Cave Mansion existed. Thinking of this, Qin Shujian continued, "In addition, collect the token of the unknown cave mansion. As for the style of the token, it's roughly like this." While talking, with a thought, his spiritual will controlled the spiritual chi of heaven and earth and condensed an almost solid token shadow in front of Su Yuanming. This was the bronze token that opened the Huading Cave Mansion, relying on the remaining memories in his mind. Now, through the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, it appeared in front of others. Su Yuanming just looked at the token shadow twice and memorized the shape of the token. Then he nodded and said, "Sect Master, don't worry. I have already remembered this matter." Speaking of this, he paused and asked again, "Sect Master, I wonder why you are investigating the chaser?" "It's just a coincidence." Qin Shujian shook his head slightly and did not talk much about this issue. Seeing this, Su Yuanming did not ask too much. There were some things that the other party did not say. It was fine for him to ask, but if he continued to ask, it would be too rude. Subsequently, Su Yuanming also seemed to have thought of something. He smiled and said, "Speaking of which, I have something that I forgot to tell Sect Master." "What is it?" "A month ago, the steward of the Baiyun Marquis Mansion, Xiao Hong, came and said that Sect Master killed the moon-devouring Demon King and specially waited for the reward from the imperial court. Su Yuanming took out a storage ring and handed it to Qin Shujian. But Sect Master was not here at that time, so I accepted the reward. Now that Sect Master is back, it should be returned to its rightful owner. Xiaohong. Qin Shujian raised his eyebrows slightly. When he took the storage ring, he asked again, apart from this matter, did he leave any message? He didn't leave anything. It seems that he just came to deliver something. Su Yuanming shook his head and said. Hearing this, Qin Shujian did not say anything more. When he killed the moon-devouring Demon King, Marquis Luoyue sent someone to deliver something. He was wondering why there was no movement from the imperial court. After all, it was fine if Marquis Luoyue did not send anything when he killed the Demon King. But a rebellious marquis had sent something to him in the name of killing the demon clan and strengthening the human clan. As the legitimate ruler of the world, it was impossible for the great Zhao dynasty to not say anything. Now that he had taken the storage ring, only then did Qin Shujian know. It turned out that the imperial court sent the item directly to Yuanzong through the Baiyun Marquis mansion. After leaving Su Yuanming's place, Qin Shujian returned to his place and dripped blood on the storage ring as usual. The storage ring immediately had some connection with him. When his mind fell, a space that was about the same size as his original storage ring appeared in his perception. After a while, when his mind withdrew from the storage ring, Qin Shujian had a bright smile on his face. 10 spirit stones, 50 kilograms of 9th-level casting materials, and 3 guru-level formations. It had to be said. The items given by the imperial court were very similar to those given by Marquis Luoyue, but they were much more precious than those given by Marquis Luoyue. Not to mention anything else. Just the extra 5 spirit stones were enough to make one's heartbeat faster. As for the 50 kilograms of 9th-level casting materials, it was obviously arranged in consideration of his identity as a guru-level forging master. It was the same for the last 3 guru-level formations. After getting so many things, Qin Shujian suddenly felt that he was much richer. In addition to the 10 spirit stones given by the imperial court, he had a huge sum of 15 spirit stones to completely inscribe these spirit stones into the array. In his opinion, it was a bit wasteful. After all, he had already used up 10 spirit stones. If he continued to use them like this, it would really be like a bottomless pit. In addition, there were still a few spirit stones left to inscribe the guru-level formations. Thinking of this, Qin Shujian kept the 15 spirit stones in his hand. Chapter 403. There were many uses for spirit stones. It could be used as the eye of the formation to strengthen the power of the formation. It could also perfectly bear the power of the heavenly man level as a life-saving trump card. And it was buried in the mountain gate. It could also increase the concentration of spirit energy and become a cultivation holy land. In the current Yuan sect, it was covered by a huge spirit gathering array. In the entire Liang Mountain spirit domain, there was no place with a higher concentration of spirit energy than here. But no matter how high the spirit energy was, there were still differences. Thinking of this, Qin Shujian's heart moved slightly, and he had other thoughts in his mind. But this matter, he put it aside for the time being and turned his attention to the 9th-level casting materials. Now back to Yuan's sect. It seemed that everything was done and he could have a good rest. In fact, when he returned to Yuan's sect, only then did Qin Shujian realize that he was far from resting. After dealing with the demons and harvesting luck points outside, there were more things waiting for him when he returned to the sect. Thinking of this, he could not help but shake his head and sigh. I was born to work. When will it end? On the peak of Liang Mountain, Qin Shujian took out all the 9th-level materials and then activated the Ming King Hellfire. He directly used the vast spirit energy as the foundation and pushed the flame to the extreme. Immediately after, he used his spiritual will to control the materials and threw them into the Ming King Hellfire to refine. The reason why he chose this place and not the original place to refine, it was because refining weapons would attract thunder tribulation. The osmanthus tree had already given birth to spirituality. Before it truly grew up, its spirituality was very weak and could not withstand the power of the thunder tribulation. He did not say that he would directly strike it. Even if a little power leaked out, it would be enough to seriously injure its spirituality or even directly dissipate. So, Qin Shujian chose this place. Or else, when it came to the concentration of the spirit energy of heaven and earth, there was also a spirit gathering array in the courtyard, and the concentration of spirit energy was no less than here. Rumble. Thunder clouds gathered in the sky, and from time to time, a thunder tribulation would strike down. For a time, it caused quite a commotion. However, Qin Shujian's return was not a secret. When they saw the thunder tribulation, many sect disciples were used to it. After all, it was fine if something happened once or twice, but if it happened too many times, there was nothing to be shocked about. Especially now, there were already many high-grade blacksmiths in the sect. By chance, there were also those who were lucky enough to refine a spirit weapon, which would also cause the lightning tribulation to descend. Therefore, to the people of the Sky Origin sect, it wasn't something to be shocked about when a lightning tribulation descended. At most, they could sense that the lightning tribulation wasn't weak, causing them to be fearful. Oh, lightning tribulation. Sect Master must be forging a spirit weapon again. When can I become a high-grade blacksmith? Then, I can forge 1 or 2 spirit weapons to play with. Sukai revealed an envious expression. Then, he glanced at his forging experience points, and his face darkened. He had been studying the Tao of casting for so long. He had only just become an inferior blacksmith. There was still a long way to go before it could reach the middle tier, let alone the upper tier. Special martial arts were different from other martial arts. He couldn't directly stack experience points on top of it by killing monsters to level up. He could only accumulate the corresponding experience points through alchemy and forging, and then raise the level of the special martial arts. This way, the players were no different from the disciples of the local sections. The only difference was that the players could see their own progress with their own eyes. When cultivating, they would have a stronger confidence. Similarly, there were 2 inferior blacksmiths. Similarly, they hadn't broken through for a few years. One couldn't see his own progress and couldn't accurately grasp the time of breakthrough and his own level. After a long time, most people would have a lazy and dispirited mentality, although the other one also hadn't broken through for a long time. However, he could see his own progress at every moment. Even if the progress was very small, he could roughly estimate when he would be able to break through the current shackles. Simply put, the former couldn't see hope, while the latter could see hope. Therefore, seriously speaking, this was also a big advantage. On the other side, after receiving Qin Shujian's order, Su Yuaming also began to send people from the Sky Origin sect to secretly inquire about the pursuers. Qin Shujian said this matter seriously. He didn't dare to slack off at all. The Sky Origin sect was now a top sect, and its power had already spread out. It wasn't just the Bayun mansion. There were also people from the Sky Origin sect in other mansions, and even in all walks of life. As a result, a lot of information only needed to be slightly inquired. Even if it was a secret thing, some clues could be obtained. However, as the people of the Sky Origin sect spread out, it took a full half a month, but in the end, there was no news at all. Such an unforeseen event. This caused Su Yuaming's expression to change again and again. There is no news at all. Either the pursuers are just randomly spouting nonsense by the sect master, or the so-called pursuers are hidden very deeply or have extremely strong forces. With the current power of the Sky Origin sect, even if they were also top sects, they could still obtain some clues. It could be said that, apart from the internal affairs of the demon race and the great Zhao imperial family, there was nothing that could be hidden from the eyes and ears of the Sky Origin sect. This was the advantage of a top sect. Of course, if the Sky Origin sect could obtain information from other forces could also obtain information from the Sky Origin sect. Perhaps among so many disciples of the Sky Origin sect, there might be spies from other sections. However, these weren't important. At most, they would be spying on each other. Everyone would expose some things on the surface, but their hidden cards would still be very stable. Su Yuanming wasn't afraid of receiving false information, as long as there were some traces. Then the Sky Origin sect would be able to investigate in this direction and obtain many useful things. However, like now, there was no news at all. It was as if there wasn't a person called the Pursuers, or rather, a faction called the Pursuers. His sect master couldn't have spouted nonsense. Then there were only two possibilities. The Pursuers were hidden too deeply, so deeply that they had almost never appeared in front of others. Therefore, the Sky Origin sect couldn't detect them. Either that, or the Pursuers were too powerful, so strong that even the scouts of the Sky Origin sect could be deceived. If it was the former, then it was fine. However, if it was the latter, then it was too terrifying. Apart from the great Zhao imperial family, there shouldn't be any other faction like this in the world. It seems that the first possibility is the most likely. The Pursuers are hidden too deeply and haven't appeared in front of others for a long time. Therefore, they couldn't be detected. However, since the sect master was able to know of the Pursuers, he must have used some method. Could it be the token of the unknown cave? Su Yuanming's thoughts spun, and he quickly connected it to the token of the unknown cave. Regarding this matter, he had sent people to investigate as well. However, compared to the Pursuers, the investigation of the bronze token was much weaker. However, now that Su Yuanming had figured out the crux of the matter, he immediately ordered people to give up on directly searching for the Pursuers and change the direction to the unknown cave token to see if they could find any traces. Boom, boom. The lightning tribulation continued to fall. Su Yuanming suppressed the thoughts in his mind and turned to look at the sky above. For half a month, the thunderclouds never dissipated. Every lightning tribulation that fell caused even him, a cultivator close to the airborne realm, to feel his heart palpitate. In other words, if these lightning tribulations were aimed at him, it wouldn't take more than two to strike him alive. I wonder what powerful spiritual weapon the sect master is refining to be able to cause such a big commotion. Could it be that he is refining a Taoist weapon? Su Yuanming secretly guessed. The commotion in front of him was much stronger than when he was refining a spiritual weapon. However, it was somewhat inferior to when he was refining a Taoist weapon. Therefore, he wasn't very clear about it himself. At the peak of Mount Liang, as the last bolt of lightning struck down, Yizichen's eyes lit up. The thunderclouds that had been covering the sky for a long time finally slowly dissipated. The 18 square array discs quietly stopped in midair, and a powerful aura spread out from them. It's done, Qin Shujian thought to himself. The 18 square array discs in front of him were the same as the 18 square array discs in his storage ring. They were all cast with 9th grade materials. Each square array disc was a high-grade spiritual weapon. The combined power was not weaker than a Taoist weapon. However, Qin Shujian inscribed his most powerful array disc in the 18 square array discs in the storage ring. He didn't plan to inscribe an offensive array on the array disc in front of him. As the spirit chi of heaven and earth turned into a tide, lines of array patterns condensed in the void, and then they were inserted into the array disc. Spirit Gathering Array. This was an enhanced version, and it was not only an array with a single spirit gathering effect. Spirit Gathering. Attack. The two became one. Although the offensive power of this array would be weakened and far from its peak level, it was enough for Qin Shujian. After the spirit deity reached 970 feet. In his opinion, many things that required divine consciousness were already at his fingertips. Originally, it would take a lot of divine thought to set up a guru-level array. But for the current Qin Shujian, countless array patterns were formed with a wave of his hand. A huge amount of divine thought power was constantly consumed, but his spirit deity didn't show any signs of fatigue. To this extent, he could be considered to have truly mastered the divine thought power that matched that of a guru of array. A guru-level array was set up. It didn't take too long. It was just that the process of inscribing the 18 square array discs one by one would be more complicated. But no matter how complicated this process was, there was a certain limit. 3 hours passed. When the last array pattern fell, the 18 square array discs completely carried this guru-level array. As Qin Shujian got up, The 18 square array discs seemed to be attracted and fell into his hand, and then were put into the storage ring. It's done. After doing all this, Qin Shujian also let out a long breath. Although he wasn't tired, however, he still felt much more relaxed after completing a task. Chapter 404. Immortal Plains. Ever since the undead evil lord broke out of the seal, the creatures here had long been extinct. Even after the undead evil lord was destroyed, no creatures dared to approach here. For no other reason. Because the demonic qi here was so polluted that the entire area had turned into a demonic land. Even after the Liang Mountain spirit domain had been promoted twice, under the scouring of a large amount of spirit qi, it had not been eradicated much. Although the demonic qi was the same as spirit qi, but to a certain extent, the demonic qi was like a maggot in the bones, and it was much more difficult to deal with than spirit qi. So, since then, there were still no creatures here. It was just that with the extinction of the creatures in the immortal plains, Qin Shujian had neglected this place for a while. It wasn't until he killed the demons and set up a formation to purify the demonic qi that he remembered this place. No matter what, the immortal plains were close to the Liang Mountain boundary. If the demonic qi here was not resolved, there would always be a gap in the territory controlled by the Yuan sect. For this, Qin Shujian had the idea of purifying the immortal plains. When he stepped into the immortal plains, an evil and chaotic aura filled the air from the surroundings. It was just that this aura, compared to the current Qin Shujian, could be described as weak. Without waiting for this aura to invade his spirit, it was directly dispelled by the terrifying spirit sense in his body. Although Qin Shujian was now at the peak of the spirit martial realm, his spirit was stronger than the average god martial realm. Not to mention the diluted demonic qi. Even if an evil spirit was in front of him, even with the overflowing demonic qi, it couldn't infect his spirit, unless the demonic qi was extremely dense to an extremely terrifying extent. If the demonic qi is dense enough to infect a god martial realm cultivator, I'm afraid that only the legendary demon Abyss can do this. It wasn't that Qin Shujian had never seen a real evil spirit. Even if the demonic qi of a demon god was powerful, it hadn't reached the point of infecting a god martial realm cultivator. Even a spirit martial realm cultivator couldn't be corroded. After a cultivator gave birth to a spirit, his spirit sense became extremely powerful, not comparable to a true martial realm cultivator. However, if one stayed in a place with dense demonic qi for a long time, even if they wouldn't be assimilated, it would still bring many negative effects. After setting foot on the immortal plains, Qin Shujian followed the memory in his mind and came to the place where he had opened the Huading Immortal's cave. However, the stone tablet had long been shattered. No matter how he spread out his divine sense, he could not find any trace of the cave mansion's existence. Since the Immortal's cave existed before, it must have used spatial means. If the cave abode is still there, then with my current spiritual sense, I should have been able to detect it. Qin Shujian stood where he was, his brows tightly knitted. It involved the use of space. That was already a matter at the celestial level. His cultivation level was at the Array Dao Grandmaster level, and he was able to open a teleportation gate using the power of space. Therefore, Qin Shujian wasn't unfamiliar with the concept of space. But now, not a single trace was left. However, it gave him a bad feeling. This was like, some things were beyond one's control, or beyond one's understanding. Perhaps it had no effect on him. However, Qin Shujian felt a little unhappy. Immediately, he flew up into the sky and the storage ring on his hand flashed. 18 square array discs flew out in all directions like flying stars. Not long after, a huge array suddenly appeared and covered the entire immortal plains. Then, vast amounts of heaven and earth spirit qi swarmed in from all directions, continuously converging into the array. With Qin Shujian's powerful perception, he could clearly sense that the surrounding spirit qi was increasing at a terrifying speed. Accordingly, the fiend qi in the immortal plains was also dispersing bit by bit. It was because the fiend chi had been there for a long time. It had already gone deep into the ground. Even under the impact of the vast spirit chi, it was difficult to completely purify this place in a short time. This required a gradual and circular process. This area should be completely purified in half a year, or at most a year. Qin Shujian made an estimation in his mind. Half a year to a year was not too long. The larger the area contaminated by the fiend chi, the longer the purification time would be. If it was the entire ordinary realm or the entire true dominion, the time needed would be many times longer. If a region was abandoned for a few decades, the loss would be big enough. Immediately, the terrifying aura of a spirit deity spread out in a vast and mighty manner and attracted the attention of the experts in the surrounding area. From today onwards, no one is allowed to step into the immortal planes. Violators will be treated as a declaration of war against the Origin sect and will be killed without mercy. The words that were full of power and the huge spiritual deity were enough to spread across half of the Liang Mountain Spirit Protectorate. Everyone's expression turned grave when they heard this. Regarding the immortal planes, many people had heard of it. The place where Qin Shujian had challenged the 8 sects was somewhat famous. However, Qin Shujian had said that no one was allowed to step in. This was somewhat thought-provoking. However, what was truly shocking was that terrifying spiritual deity, especially the experts in Liang Mountain City. When they saw the mountain-like spiritual deity, their expressions changed greatly. A 1,000 feet spiritual deity? If I remember correctly, the sect master of the Origin sect has not broken through to the divine martial realm. Hee. You told me that a 1,000 feet spiritual deity hasn't broken through to the divine martial realm. He must have broken through long ago. Otherwise, how could he have reached such a level? The limit of the prominent sage realm is the 200 feet spiritual deity. Even if a genius could break through this limit, he would not have reached such a level. He must have broken through to the divine martial realm. When they saw the 1,000 feet spiritual deity, many people started to discuss spiritedly. The topic quickly shifted to Qin Shujian's cultivation level. Compared to the matter of the immortal planes, they paid more attention to the other party's cultivation level. 970 feet was about the same as 1,000 feet. Furthermore, there was some distance between them. In the eyes of these people, it was no different from 1,000 feet. After all, a cultivator who had just entered the divine martial realm would only have a spiritual deity of about 400 to 500 feet. Those who had reached 1,000 feet were at least at the late stage of the divine martial realm. When they thought of this, many people were secretly shocked. Middle stage divine martial realm? Late stage divine martial realm? The other party was still in the prominent sage realm a year ago. Now, he had grown to such a level. The reincarnation of a powerful expert is indeed domineering. He reached such a level so quickly. In another year or two, wouldn't he be able to reach the celestial realm again? Then, it wouldn't take long for him to recover to his peak. When they thought of this, some people were secretly shocked again. As for the reincarnation of a powerful expert, many people had heard of it before, but they didn't have a specific understanding of it. Therefore, in their opinion, this might be the normal speed of a powerful expert's reincarnation. But for some people who knew about the reincarnation of a powerful expert, their hearts were even more solemn. It was true that the reincarnation of a powerful expert's cultivation level advanced extremely quickly, but no matter how fast it was, there was a limit. Continuously advancing like this, it didn't take long for him to reach the celestial realm. This was completely against the norm. When they saw the 1,000 feet spiritual deity, everyone's attention fell on the guess that Qin Shujian was in the divine martial realm. No one had thought of it. The fact that this sect Master Qin was still in the spirit martial realm. After all, no one had ever been able to raise the spiritual deity to such a level when they were in the spirit martial realm. There was no one before. In their opinion, there would be no one in the future. After the divine manifestation announced the immortal planes, Qin Shujian completely withdrew the 90 feet spiritual deity. Looking at the immortal planes that had been covered by the formation, He lifted his body into the air and directly left this place. 18 square formation plates were set up. There was a spirit-gathering formation on the immortal planes, and there was also a powerful killing formation. Although there was no way to deal with a celestial realm cultivator, but with the 18 high-grade spirit weapon formation plates as the foundation, this formation was enough to deal with any expert below the celestial realm, even if it was a half-step celestial realm expert. Those who dared to step into the immortal planes without permission would also suffer a fatal attack. Therefore, Qin Shujian had just shown his spiritual deity. Firstly, he didn't want anyone to come and destroy the purification progress of the immortal planes. Secondly, he didn't want anyone to die for no reason. But after his warning, if they still recklessly went in without permission, then even if they died, they couldn't blame anyone. After doing these things, Qin Shujian had already returned to Yuan's sect. At this time, there were many people in the sect who were still shocked by the huge spiritual deity just now. He didn't say much about this matter, whether it was the spirit martial realm or the divine martial realm. This time, after dealing with the matter, Qin Shujian would truly enter seclusion. If he didn't break through to the divine martial realm, he would definitely not come out of seclusion. However, before going into seclusion, Qin Shujian also directly ordered in the sect that all disciples of Yuan's sect were not allowed to take half a step into the immortal planes. As for the reason, he didn't say. As for the punishment after stepping in, he also didn't say anything. Because there was no need for punishment. With the current strength of the sect disciples, if they dared to enter the immortal planes, they would definitely die. After doing these things, Qin Shujian came to Su Yuanming and asked, "What's the progress of the matter I asked you to investigate? I've already used most of the people who chased after the sect master, but I haven't found any information. However, there is some idle news about the token of the unknown cave." Su Yuanming said in a deep voice without hesitation, "It's just that the news hasn't been confirmed yet. It will take some time to investigate, and I can't give a definite answer for the time being." Okay. Hearing this, Qin Shujian wasn't too surprised. The matter of the chasers was difficult to investigate. He had already guessed it. It was best to have clues. If it was similar, there was no other way. On the contrary, if he could get the token of the unknown cave, he might be able to get information about the chasers. With this in mind, Qin Shujian also thought of other things and said, "In addition, I need some detailed information about the reincarnations of the Great Zhao dynasty. Try to collect as much information as possible." Yes. Chapter 405. It was related to the Almighty. It was also because of Niu Dali that Qin Shujian wanted to do a thorough check. If this bull demon was really the reincarnation of an Almighty, then he was a human Almighty or a demon Almighty. But he guessed. If the other party was the reincarnation of an Almighty, he was most likely a demon Almighty. After all, if the Almighty was the reincarnation, there was no way he couldn't control the reincarnation of a human or demon. After giving some instructions, Qin Shujian took away the 3 innate spirit objects. When he went to the peak of Mount Liang to cultivate, he absorbed the 3 innate spirit objects in advance. With his current abundant luck points, he could not afford to be careless. The 3 innate spirit objects couldn't provide much luck points, but it was better than nothing. Then, Qin Shujian took out 15 spiritual stones from his storage ring and placed them around his body. Instantly, the rich spiritual qi instantly went berserk. The spiritual qi of heaven and earth from the 15 spiritual stones was enough to shock anyone. Moreover, he didn't place them casually. He arranged them in a formation and tried his best to dig out the vast amount of spiritual qi stored in the spiritual stones for himself to absorb and cultivate. This way, the spiritual qi that exploded out was even more terrifying. When the formation was completed, Qin Shujian immediately entered a state of cultivation. Now, except for 2 cultivation methods, the other 5 cultivation methods had not been cultivated to perfection. They were all around the 7th level of the spiritual martial arts. Qin Shujian didn't want to waste too much life force. He wanted to rely on himself to see if he could improve these cultivation methods. even if he couldn't reach perfection of the spiritual martial arts. But at least, he had to improve by 1 or 2 levels. It was good to save a bit of life force. No matter how small a mosquito's leg was, it was still meat. For now, he needed millions, tens of millions, or even hundreds of millions of life force. It was better to save a bit. Anyway, for Qin Shujian, he could accumulate life force by sitting and cultivating. He wasn't in a hurry. In a flash, half a month passed. At the peak of Mount Liang, the spiritual qi surged. Under the vast spiritual qi, a man in a green robe sat cross-legged. He didn't move at all, as if he was dead. After a long time, the green-robed man opened his eyes, which were filled with helplessness. I haven't improved at all in half a month. I really overestimated myself. Qin Shujian felt somewhat helpless. He had spent so much time bitterly cultivating, but in the end, he didn't gain anything at all. This made his balls hurt. He thought nothing of it. Relying on his own talent and the unique cultivation environment, he could also take a step forward from his original foundation. In the end, Qin Shujian realized that he had overestimated himself. The 5 cultivation techniques remained motionless. Not to mention a breakthrough. It didn't even improve. This made him understand why there were so few people who cultivated more than 2 cultivation methods. This was because the difficulty of advancing in the future would increase with each additional cultivation technique. For someone like him who practiced the 7 martial techniques, after reaching the spiritual martial technique, it would be hard for him to move. According to the current trend, Qin Shujian estimated that if you were given another 3 to 5 years, you might have the opportunity to push a cultivation technique to the next level. However, this was only a cultivation technique. It would take at least a few hundred years to reach the completion stage of the spiritual martial arts. Even so, it was still because he had the title of Liangshan Domain Lord and the current cultivation environment with dense spiritual aura. Or else, even if Qin Shujian was given 1,000 years, he wasn't confident that he would succeed. Thinking of this, Qin Shujian accepted his fate. Then, he looked at the 80 million life force source with a sorrowful expression. Then, with a thought, when the life force source sharply decreased, a cultivation technique also directly broke through to the next level. Central State Prefecture, Imperial Palace. Ever since the death of the human emperor, the princes had been fighting for the throne. In the end, the imperial astronomer took out the human emperor's edict and announced that the first prince, Shiyang, would temporarily take over the throne for 3 years. At this point, the matter of the princes fighting for the throne had come to an end for the time being. After all, there was the human emperor's edict. If the others didn't obey the order, it would be equivalent to rebellion. For the crime of rebellion, even as a prince of the royal family, he couldn't bear the responsibility. And in the eyes of the other princes, the first prince might not be able to sit firmly on the throne. If he couldn't govern the world within 3 years, or if something happened, he would be chased out sooner or later, especially now that the flames of war were rising everywhere. Among the 13 prefectures, 4 of them had rebelled, and demons had broken out of the seal. The world could be said to be in chaos. At this time, if anything went wrong, it would be the other party's fault. So, now that the first prince had taken the throne, many people were happy to see it happen. Standing on the cusp of the storm wasn't necessarily a good thing. Perhaps if one was careless, it would be the result of being smashed to pieces. At this time, the atmosphere in the palace was solemn. All the civil and military officials were gathered here. Sitting on the throne was a man with a dignified face. He wore a black and gold robe, and every move he made was filled with an invisible deterrence. The first prince, Shiyang. From the other party's aura, which was in accordance with the will of the heavens, one knew that he was a diviner. But this was normal. The human emperor had been on the throne for more than 6,000 years, and some of his descendants had also lived for thousands of years. If he hadn't reached the diviner realm, he would have turned into a pile of bones. How could he sit here? Although Shiyang looked middle-aged, he had been a prince for thousands of years. Speaking of which, this was a little sad. A prince for thousands of years was really a little sullen. Now that he was sitting on the throne and looking down at the officials below, Xiang felt a sense of satisfaction in his heart. Your Majesty, there are now demon disasters everywhere. Although we have sent troops to suppress them, the demons are not to be underestimated. Many places have already sent messages for help. Assistant Minister Zhou Dingjun stepped out and said in a deep voice. After saying that, another person stepped forward and also cupped his hands. Your Majesty, Assistant Minister Zhou is right. The matter of the evil demon cannot be delayed. If the demon disaster is allowed to rise, everywhere it passes will become a demonic land. When that time comes, I'm afraid the people will be plunged into misery and suffering. Now that the demon disasters had started, it wasn't just a matter of one or two places. Among the 13 prefectures, only Baiyun Prefecture didn't have a demon disaster during this period. Even the Central State Prefecture had a demon disaster. The original drawback of sealing the demons. At this moment, it was finally revealed. The demons were severely injured but not killed. They were only sealed in order to weaken the power of the demon abyss. But now there were changes in the world. There were people from the outside world who were not controlled by the imperial court's laws. The original drawback of sealing the demons. It was completely exposed. Upon hearing that, Shi Yang's expression remained the same. After the others finished speaking, he said slowly, speaking of which, there hasn't been a demon disaster in Baiyun Prefecture yet, right? Your Majesty, Marquis Baiyun killed all the demons in the ordinary realm and true dominion first. The demons in the other regions are strictly guarded. Therefore, there hasn't been a demon disaster. In that case, let's proceed according to Baiyun Prefecture, Xiang said calmly. After saying that, Assistant Minister Xing Jinan stepped out and said with cupped hands, Your Majesty, you can't. We sealed the demons to weaken the power of the demon abyss. If we kill them wantonly, they will definitely be reborn in the demon abyss. When the demons return, the power of the demon abyss will increase greatly. When that time comes, I'm afraid that the seal will be unstable and it will cause a greater disaster. Humph, if it causes a disaster, isn't it a disaster now? Zhou Dingjun snorted and retorted. Now that the variant humans are not controlled by the laws of the imperial court, the demons sealed in any place are unstable factors. The demon disasters in the various prefectures are a sign. Even if we don't kill these demons, when the variant humans release them in the future, at least half of the Great Zhao Nation's territory will turn into a land of demons. When that time comes, the people will be plunged into misery and suffering. Xing Jianan, can you bear the responsibility for this crime? In the main hall, Zhou Dingjuan's words were powerful and powerful. His words were full of anger towards Xing Jianan. At this point, he turned to Shi Yang with cupped hands and said solemnly, As long as your Majesty gives the order, I'm willing to be the first to kill the demons and quell the demon disasters. Before Shi Yang could speak, Xing Jianan also cupped his hands and said, Your Majesty, although the demon disasters are serious, we can still prevent them from happening as long as we deploy troops to strictly guard them. If we kill the demons wantonly, the benefits will outweigh the drawbacks. Shi Yang was silent for a while. Then, he looked at the officials on both sides and asked, In your opinion, what should we do now? For a moment, the court was silent. No one spoke easily. No matter if it was killing the demons or sealing the demons, there were hidden dangers behind all these matters. It would be fine if nothing went wrong. If something went wrong, they would not be able to escape responsibility. Even if the probability was not high, but to be on the safe side, they could not speak easily. At this point, Shi Yang's expression was slightly cold as he said indifferently, Could it be that the officials of the Great Zhao Nation are helpless in the face of the demon disasters? As he spoke, he felt somewhat helpless. In the end, he was not the true human emperor. He was only a temporary emperor. In terms of power, compared to his imperial father, he was still lacking. The civil and military officials in the court appeared respectful on the surface, but in reality, many people did not place him, the emperor, in their eyes. This was something that could not be helped. After all, the forces behind the officials were tangled and complicated. Many of them were even related to the princes. But as long as they did not do anything that crossed the line on the surface, Xiang could not do anything to them, no matter what. His current position was not stable. It was at this time. Dingyuan General Dan Hao stepped out and cupped his hands. Your Majesty, in my opinion, we should focus on killing the demons. As for the matter of the demon abyss, it is just a matter for later. If the demon disasters start on a large scale, the great Zhao nation will collapse without attacking. As for sending troops to strictly guard, that is even more nonsense. There are many experts, and they are everywhere. No matter how tight the defense is, there will be a time when there is a gap. Therefore, I feel that Assistant Minister Zhou's suggestion is not bad. In addition, Marquis Bei Yun's way of doing things is worthy of emulating. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.